Good evening and welcome to Reexamined with Meghan Walsh. I am Meghan's co-host Gino, and we are glad you have joined us. Sorry for the delay tonight, folks. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here. We're ready to go. Meghan, how are you tonight? You're muted. Don't you hate technology?
Every show, it's here we go, guys. It's starting out right. I'm great. How about you, Gino?
Doing good. Doing good. Thank you for asking. Got a good show. This is episode 4 already. Can you believe it?
I actually can't. Somebody was talking to me, asking me about it today, and I was like, well, we're actually on episode 4. So we're cranking along, we're new, we're getting everywhere, and now everyone can see us on every platform, Spotify, our iHeart, Apple, the universe. I mean, are we on the moon yet? I don't know. So but everyone can find us now. So it's really fun.
Has anybody gone to the moon yet? I don't know. Everything's a conspiracy, Megan. Everything.
I think so far it's hearsay at this point, right? Everything's hearsay.
Maybe we'll have to do a show about landing on the moon or not landing on the moon, or flat Earth or no flat Earth.
I try to stay my lane, Gino.
Yeah, I hear you.
There's only so much we can take on.
Yeah. So anyway, tonight, good show. We're gonna go through some more evidence. We've got a couple of videos. We're gonna review the Finders Club cult, whatever you want to call them. That's kind of a disturbing thing with the CIA, yeah. And how it ties in with the Adam Walsh case, at least we think it does. We're also going to review some more videos, and we have some documents we're going to read over. But let's get into it. Let's start. I'm going to start with the video, Meghan. We're going to start with, I want you to listen to what your father says at the end of this. I think it's at the end. I'll bring it up after we watch the video.
Police say 6-year-old Adam Walsh is missing a front tooth. He was last seen wearing a beige canvas hat at the Hollywood Mall. Tonight, members of the Citizens Crime Watch of Hollywood continue to search for young Adam. At one point, a spokesman said 200 people had joined the search. Hollywood police detectives tracked down leads and helped groups out scouring the area. Adam's father, John Walsh, says if the youth was abducted, he was going to negotiate with those involved.
It has been my decision, totally on my own, that I would offer a substantial reward for information resulting in the safe depositing of Adam or return of Adam, and that I would negotiate with the abductors in whatever way they want me to, whatever terms, if they want to leave Adam and still negotiate with me, or negotiate with me and then leave. I don't know the formula. It's my decision.
You're not going to give up hope?
I can't give up hope.
Members of a group driving four-wheel drive vehicles gathered across the street from the police department. They plan to search hard to reach areas. Hollywood police say anyone with information about the missing youth can call tonight at 921-3911. Again, that number is 921-3911. Mel Taylor, Newswatch 10.
So, I think we've watched that video in the past, but he said safe depositing or return of Adam with the abductors, plural.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of odd that he would assume it was more than one person. Because it seems to me in all the other things we watched, they were usually referring to one person. At least the interviews I've seen.
Yeah, myself as well. I agree with you. From what I've seen, it's always been a singular person, or, we know that James Campbell, actually, to go where we left off last time, did actually in one of his affidavits say that he wouldn't even be surprised if Adam ran away due to the situation going on and the circumstances. So, but I've never heard multiple abductors. So that was an interesting catch, as well as, again, this this reiteration of, we're willing to sacrifice ourselves, and the use of the word sacrifice, and, the body language included in it, and, things like that are just interesting to pay attention to, right?
Right, exactly. Jackie 011 said he may have said abductors by mistake. That's my feeling on it. I don't know. Look, again, I have to consider that if this is legitimate, like they've said it has been for 40 plus years, then there's the element of trauma there too. So you're going to say things, you're nervous, you're in front of the media, all that stuff. So I get it. Like there could be a slip of the tongue just by nerves or being fearful of something. So
Right.
I'm okay with it. But I just thought it was weird because I had seen prior interviews. I believe that one was maybe within a week or so, a week and a half, I believe. And the other ones were always an abductor or somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Ah,
I think it's definitely fair to give that leeway and grace, of course. But again, on here, that's what we're here to do. We're observing and we're asking questions, and we're just, we're not investigators, we're not the police. So we're looking at it, and we're going to all see what we think. And tonight is a lot of different stuff that the police were given and things too, and a couple different areas we're going into. So just expect that going into tonight. I guess maybe we should have prefaced a little bit. So
right.
yeah, I think that, it's just, again, another clip to observe. And we're looking, when we look at these clips, again, we're looking at body language, we're listening to what they're saying. I mean, that's what, and any police would do. That's what somebody from the outside would look at. So that's really what we're kind of focusing on here, as well as, questioning, or seeing what we need to question from it. So,
Absolutely.
it's a good clip
I
just
am
to see.
I am Beanpole over there in Foxhole said, "What does safe deposit mean?" That means they could drop Adam off anywhere in a place where they could come and find him. Yeah, at
Well,
first, yeah,
it is interesting because, and I have to say, like, I guess I should give credit where credit is due. I try to, but the people have to understand that, when you're a local, right? If you're a local in an area, you maybe hear different things than what the news puts out, or maybe the local scoop or different things like that. But for the last 2 years, it has been that the original rumor was, excuse me, we have a train going by right now. But the original thing down in the rumor mill and in the local area was that, my father owed money, that he was involved in stuff, through his boss, and, doing cocaine and things, and that he owed money for some reason, some sort, and he refused to pay that. And so a hit was put out on Adam. And that's the local rumor that many people swear by. And so I think it is interesting here when he sees, like, safe drop or whatever he was saying, and Dropbox or whatever, and kind of negotiating this thing. I think that that's interesting, just to put in there
yeah,
as
for
well.
sure,
In that,
absolutely.
I guess I should say.
Yeah, and I mean the safe deposit thing. That's kind of a common thing when there's like these situations, abductions, where
Yeah, and like he
they'll
could
pick a
be nice
spot and
because they're
yeah,
hopeful that, whoever it is
exactly.
will return the child. I mean,
Yep,
there's these obvious
right.
things. I mean, we're not negating any of that. I think that's first and foremost. So we're talking about the stuff that maybe other people wouldn't bring up or question. So,
And sometimes that's also so there'd be no apprehension of the abductor, something like that. They might let him go. And I know your dad mentioned that a bunch of times. He says, "Hey, we're not looking to prosecute. We just want our son back, or sometimes the boy back." Um, so,
mhm,
sorry, just
mhm.
want to
There's
be give.
that.
Yeah, we
That
got
boy. That boy
that boy.
drives me nuts.
Yeah, kind of odd. All right.
Yeah.
Well, me and Megan were looking through some documents today, and we found a couple really weird letters that were in the Adam files. And Megan, I gotta say, I remember when I read them, I was just like, "What are these?" They're anonymous sources. There's no signatures or anything on them. So obviously, they were sent to the police. The police put them in the read them, put them in the file, and this kind of forgot about them. But we were strolling through some documents and found these two, and it's very weird. Now, this
Well,
first
and I
one,
want to say,
yeah, go ahead.
before you pull it up, Gino, is that, there's, of course, we know that a lot of people called into the Hollywood Police Department. We know, of course, once it got national, people are going to report, or they're going to do that. So I guess we'll preface with that, before we go into it in question. But, we've scrolled through a lot, like you were saying, we scrolled through a lot of what was there, and most of it you could tell that, we kind of skimmed right over it after reading it, because it was obviously just a dead end, or it was somebody just calling in or whatnot. But there were these few that really were eerie and did stick out to us, and kind of stopped us, in our gut, and to look at. So that's how we pulled those out. But I do want to again preface that, of course, people were calling in. Actually, what was said by witnesses that called in was that they were calling in, and if they had an account of that day that did not fit the mainstream narrative that was already put out. Because again, Adam was taken in like overnight. My parents are going to trips to Tampa and Orlando, as we'll see later, and on Good Morning America, the following week and a half later, and already scheduled, and all that kind of stuff. So this was this is interesting to look at, and I think with all of it we can go from there after we look at it. Maybe I should
Yeah.
stop there and look.
And as we're reading it, I guess the idea is we want the audience participation on this. Like, what do you think this means? Because it can be taken multiple ways. Me and Megan have our own ideas on what it says. It's a little confusing. Again, it's anonymous, so I don't think it would ever be permissible in court. It's just hearsay at this point. But we found it very interesting.
Yeah.
So
and I was saying that if anyone
go
called
ahead.
and had a different narrative or a different take of that day than what was already put out, then that they were being turned away by the Hollywood police and that they were ignored. So that's kind of also works into this and how we sifted through it.
Right. So Charlie Reese is he's actually was a syndicated writer for the Sentinel there in Orlando. And I think he retired. I think I looked it up. He was like 2002. So he was like mid 80s to like 2002. And this letter was written and he submitted it, I guess, to the police. Originally, it was written to Detective Sam Martin or John, is that Keeson? I think that's what it says. And it says, I hope this helps your business, which is kind of odd. It says, I met this guy in an Ocala bar who said he knew someone that would pay 10 grand for a young boy. This guy had lost his kid and his wife was going nuts. We took the deal. He paid cash. I went to Chicago and my friend stayed put. I get back and find this kid was killed. I know his name was Adam and he was from the islands. He got him in Hollywood. I don't know this man's name. He don't know mine. He has big beard. I think he meant he has a big beard and don't wear any shoes on his feet. He is crazy as hell. So there's many things that stick out here, Megan. What do you want to point out first?
The whole thing is bizarre.
Very.
But also, these seem to be the realm that we're dealing with. I will say we have letters that we'll get into once we start covering Otis Toole that are absolutely heinous and, saying crazy things too. And that was all believed and taken as, truth. So how can we not take this one, right? If these detectives have closed his case on Otis with the evidence that they did and the work that they did, then we're okay here, I guess. So I think we're actually maybe doing a better job. But to answer your question, a couple things stick out for me. Ocala Bar. Ocala is an area in Florida. Obviously, it's a little west towards the middle of the state, from about the Tampa area. And it's really known for like horse country and stuff, which we know my family is very much into horses. I would go with my mom all the time to buy and trade horses. That's a whole other show, but Ocala is definitely not an undoable thing, right, or an unrealistic thing. And I think it's interesting. I met a guy in Ocala, so this person is writing saying that he met the person in Ocala, and that this person writing it was actually the person that took the deal and took the money, the $10,000, to get a child for this person who's willing to pay cash, 10 grand. And it says this guy had lost his kid and his wife was going nuts. Okay, so it's a guy who already has lost a child from so far, right? We took the deal. He paid cash. I went to Chicago. My friend stayed there. I get back and find this kid was killed. Okay, so is he then referring to the child that he got for this person? Or is he saying that he found out that the child that the guy lost had been killed before? But then it says, I know his name was Adam and he was from the islands. So we know that the islands that my dad was going back and forth to the Bahamas. We have pictures of Adam in the Bahamas. I was hid out, because of this so-called alleged hit by NAMBLA. I don't know why NAMBLA would ever put a hit on my life. I'm not a boy. My dad was just new, whatever. So I was taken and hid out for the first year of my life and a little bit after in the Bahamas or in the islands. I don't know if I was actually on, where I was told I was. And so it says from the islands. So it's not unrealistic, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it is, but it's not unrealistic. We got him in Hollywood. So there's somebody saying in Ocala, and Adam was in Hollywood. But then that it says we got him, and he was from the islands. We got him in Hollywood. So that's something to, look at or wrestle with, I guess. I don't know this man's name. He don't know mine. Okay, that would make sense. He has a big beard and he don't wear shoes on his feet. So I'm wondering, who's not wearing shoes around. If we knew that, that might be an easy way to solve it. If we were back today.
Right.
Who's a guy with a beard that doesn't wear shoes? That's pretty, that guy if you're local. And he's crazy as hell. So we don't know who that is, but I will say if we look at the players that we do know within, the case, that we have looked at James Campbell. We've been able to find one photograph of him, and he was a crazy guy. We find out with, that was into motorcycles and everything, despite the other stuff about him, being a beach guy and stuff. My dad's also into motorcycles and beach guys. It's very bizarre and he has sort of a beard. I mean, not a big beard, but he has a beard. He looks pretty clothed there, but we can't see his feet, I guess, Gino. So who knows? And then there it is again. I was Adam's father, he says first, his brother, his uncle, his best friend. So there is already a lot of speculation. What was James's relationship to Adam? Why was he this, that? Why was he so important? Why was he the houseboy at a young age? My cat got under the desk and is clawing. Sorry, guys. I hope she doesn't go on the wall or something crazy. Who knows? And so, we see these different things where it is questionable. I know many people ask me, knowing that someone has now come out, I'm about to drop a bomb, it's random, but knowing that someone's come out saying that they are Adam and alive, many people are like, well, why don't you do DNA, all of that. Well, we tried. That's a whole other thing we'll get into sometime. But the fact of why I'm bringing this up is like, and I would never say this, but so many people have said this, was he your brother? Are you guys even siblings? Are those even your parents? All that kind of stuff. So there is that, to wrestle with, but there's these questions is my point, and we don't know.
Sure.
None of us were there. And here it is saying that there was a guy that already lost his kid, but then he's saying the kid that we got for the $10,000 was Adam. We picked him up in Hollywood. He was from the islands. So, that isn't far off, I will say. They did get him in Miami, or whoever got him, excuse me. And he did spend a lot of time back and forth in the Bahamas and in the islands. So, very interesting. And I wonder, and again, lost his child and his wife was going crazy. That is actually very accurate about him.
We know that for sure. All right, so there's another letter I want to get into. This is the same guy. This is Charlie Reese. He was that syndicated reporter for the Orlando Sentinel. It says, "Dear Charlie, you did a wonderful job reporting to Walsh's case, but in no way do I agree with you or feel sorry for that slut, Mrs. Walsh. She should be driven out of town. I feel for the child. He was murdered by his mother's thoughtlessness. She left him on the other side of the store while she looked at lamps. The child should have been at her side, not left alone. She deserves all the hell she is going through and a lot more. The blame should not be put on the mall, Sears, or other children, security police, or the FBI. The blame falls on the mother for leaving the child alone." I don't know, what does that say?
I think it's article.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I spelled it wrong. Yeah, okay. The article you have, Walsh is determined to help their children. Well, the only way she can help other children is not to be able to have another child or have contact with others to be charged with the crime. I would not let a dog unattended, no less a child. Charlie, give this letter a little thought, and if you don't agree with some of my views, I hope you never have to go through the same with your child, and you deserve a wife like Mrs. Walsh. So, and then it says, a friend of yours, since you started for the fish wrapper, must have been a food place or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this must have been submitted to the paper, and then he turns it over to the police.
Mhm.
But interesting that I don't know who this person is, but they called Reve a slut, right? So it says, feel sorry for that slut, Mrs. Walsh. Now, why would you choose that word, Megan? And if you're just a reader, if you're just an observer reading the paper one day and you're following Charlie's articles and all his opinion pieces he's got, what would makes a writer call in and call her a slut, and not just like why like calling her something else, like why did she leave him alone? Why is she such a horrible mother for leaving her child alone in a store? Instead, they go right to slut. I mean, I don't know.
That's a point.
I mean,
That's a point.
Did they know something? I don't know.
I think that's a good question. They seem to know a lot of information, or who that guy is, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
especially. But and it is hard. Again, we'll preface that we understand the time of that day. People will say, "Oh, back then people would leave their children, and it was that time. You didn't worry." All that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But I think that, and we've accepted that. That's okay too. Myself being a mother, I wouldn't. But again, now my point here is that we also see someone of that time. This was in 81, this letter was written. And they're pointing out the fact that the child should not be left alone. So again, we've been given a lot of scripts, we've been given a lot of lines to be able to sleep at night or not question things or whatnot, like, oh, everyone left their child, so this, overlook this. But then again, when we look into deeper what's going on, when we see James Campbell, when we talk to other people, when we see the discrepancies, and then we find that Reve and John and their my mother's live-in lover, to be accurate from what we know. It's debatable to me, but anyways, we know that they were, using drugs, they were using cocaine consistently, they were, you know doing everything under that, marijuana, drinking, whatever else. They had a very you know, luxurious, a flashy lifestyle, if you will. That's when I started speaking to John Monahan, my father's boss, his son, and other people that were children and were there and different things, and kind of described to me how the atmosphere was. And when we look at history, we know how it was. I mean, the Diplomat Hotel has a history in itself, and especially around that time. So we have to look at what the environment was, and the fact that my mom, what their lifestyle was. It's also, again, we'll remind the audience why they closed the Sears case, which we'll get into in a little bit, and fought to keep that closed. They have fought to cover a lot of stuff for 40 years, including retaliating against people through CPS. So I think why he might have gone to slut, though, I hate even saying the word, but that was your original question. I think that the lifestyle was very loose. I don't think that it was a secret that James and my mother were sleeping together. I don't believe that my father found out, during Adam's case. We also know from police reports that my father was sleeping with, quote unquote, anything with legs, which doesn't necessarily even, you know, define a sex, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say that, looking at just picking it apart. Um, but we have these issues going on, and if somebody does know, my parents were known because they were under John Monahan, John Monahan and his wife were like the celebrity couple. The executives at the Diplomat, you wanted to know them. They were very flashy. They had an estate down there in Hollywood. People lived at the estate. My parents lived at the estate for a while, which I do believe that John Monahan groomed my father. I believe that my father went as a cabana boy, my mom was the wife. I believe that they met his boss, shoot, his first name is leaving me, but last name Bracken, and then his wife Carmen Bracken. And I do believe they were older, and I do believe that they started grooming my parents, into the lifestyle, or at least, making it more okay, and getting them into it, if you will. And then that's when he, is promoted, and knows John Monahan now, and then they're living with John Monahan on his private property, which we also see James living there at one point off and on. And I've been there. It was always people, I don't think people are understanding, like, the environment of these people. I would be at John Monahan's house when I was little. I knew John Monahan when I was little, and he would have these big pig roasts and, all these people everywhere and huge high-end parties, but it was people in and out of the house all the time. And from what we've been told, that was also not to that elaborate extent, but that's also what was going on in my parents' house as well. So given these different aspects, and Adam sleeping with my mother's lover in the house, and saying that Adam sleeps with him once in a while and when he's scared, why wasn't he going to his father's bedside like I used to when I was little, when I was scared, in the house? Or is it because I'm gonna say the crazy, were they all sleeping in the same bed together, so he went into scared and would sleep with it's insane. And then we know that the allegation, I'm going way off and I'm rambling, but I know that then the allegations that are against me, one of them is that I allow my paramour to sleep in bed with my children. I'm John
Oh my
Walsh's
gosh.
daughter, and I don't have paramour, and I don't for sure let anyone sleep in bed with my
No.
children. But then it sounds insane, it sounds crazy, it sounds gross, but then we have in the records here Adam sleeping with my mother's paramour. So regardless of what bed or where the bed was. So I think that people did, I mean, I'm trying to be graceful in this, Gino. That's why I think I'm not answering the question.
Well, Megan,
My parents are very promiscuous. My parents have
yes.
always been very promiscuous. My dad, I grew up with mistresses, and on my 21st birthday, him going on Larry King Live, professing that he's a sex addict, and more. I used to walk in on them. I mean, it's a whole thing. So I don't think that it kind of seems like he might know her. I hate to say that. And I hate to say that about my mother, but those are the facts of the matter. I know more stuff too that really is appalling, that would lead to that. But
Yeah,
my
it
father
definitely.
was too, so I can't really say anything.
Well, it definitely seems that there was an open marriage going on there. I mean, they both knew what was going on the other side, and they were allowing it. I mean, you have a live-in lover, for crying out loud. I mean, that should tell you everything
And
you
they
need
were
to know.
sleeping together years before he moved in. So
Right.
that's not like, oh, it was his friend. And, my dad is very good at being the feminine role, and he's very good at being the victim. And my mom is very much like the stern, male role in the
Hmm.
relationship. So,
Yeah. It seems like they had a handshake and a deal before anything ever got started there. Something was going on,
and that's
for
what we
sure.
also see later when he has mistresses. I would pick up the phone while I've said this before, while I'm putting my little brother down for a nap because my mom's nowhere to be found and the nanny wasn't working. So I would be putting my brother down for a nap. And when he's a baby, and then one time I go down to the bathroom and my dad's on the other side of the wall, with his mistress on the phone, and I would pick up the phone and tell her to hang up and leave our family alone. And I was the little fighter. And then my dad would say, "Oh, please don't tell your mom. We're doing so good." And it was the manipulation and the abuse. And I would go along with it because I loved my dad, and he really played my mom and I against each other growing up. And my mom was not a nice mom at all. She was my covert abuser. So, this does make sense. I hate to say, as ugly as this letter sounds, and people don't want to blame my mother. When I find that she, could have been high on cocaine, or she could, she doesn't have her times right, any of that. She's in a love affair where she's having the guy move out, where he, just weeks before, and he's saying that, he went to get on his own, for Reve, so that in hopes that, she and maybe Adam would join him, stuff like that. I'm not exactly so mad at this letter, to be honest. I call it
Well, I
what
got
you
to tell
want.
you,
Not that
when I first found out about her promiscuity, I was thinking, okay, so she goes to the mall. How do we know she didn't run off for a little sexcapade while Adam's, playing Atari games?
right. And
Because
also we see
the
that
time.
she would pawn Adam off on James all the time. My mom
Yes.
never has taken care of any of us, to be honest. I mean, she plays a good part, but she's never behind closed doors actually taking care of us. So that's very
Yeah,
possible.
and we've
And
seen the
90
time.
minutes, John, 90
Yes, I
minutes.
was going to say we've seen the time discrepancies. She said 10 minutes, 9 minutes, or something like that. Then 10. it's changed a million times, but 90 is what seems to be the legitimate time that she was missing. Like, so what is going on for 90 minutes? Coke and sex? I don't know.
Apparently she's running around and everything, at the time looking for him. So, I want to be fair, but also we've heard rumor, we have to even question if Adam was even at the mall that day. I know that sounds crazy, but we have no one that's confirmed that he was the same boy. When they were all asked with his picture ID, no one actually recognized him until the few that said they did after they were hypnotized, or the security guard. I think what we didn't bring up about the security guard is actually that the security, hub or kiosk, whatever, for Sears department store was actually in the toy department. And that day, after she told Adam and the boys to disperse, that she gives her affidavit that the head of security at Sears actually told her to go home and change her clothes from her security uniform and to change into auto uh, department clothes uniform and to return and work the rest of the day in the auto department. I don't I've never worked at Sears, so maybe that's a common thing, but I did want to point that out. But I digress back to the fact that no one has really confirmed ever seen Adam there. I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm just pointing out the facts that no one has ever truly confirmed. And when they were asked, no one from the photo ID actually identified Adam, as well as the security guard in her testimony also notes that the boy she saw that day, whoever that was, looked to be, again, I think I brought this up the last show, like looked to be in quote unquote a bad way, or that he wasn't taken care of, or that there was something off about him. So that's also congruent with some of the things that we've seen, and the neglect and the potential of fetal alcohol syndrome, especially knowing the drug and alcohol and the lifestyle use, and things of that. So you know
Yeah, good points. Well, while you brought up Monahan and you brought up his son Michael, we might as well just go there for a couple seconds and look at this. I've got it here. Let's look at his polygraph. I mean, he was questioned extensively. It looks like, I think this was 96, I believe. Um, this is kind of funny, actually. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. So it says this was Detective Mark Smith, who, Megan, is Smith the guy that your mom and dad went up to at the car, knocked on the window and said, "Hey, have you found my son yet? Or are you looking for my son?" And then he was like a young buck at the time.
From what I remember, he was, but I don't want to misspeak. I don't want to be.
Yeah, I think he was like 23 years old or something. He started digging into this case. But it says on January 4th, 1996, Michael Monahan responded to the Hollywood Police Department and voluntarily submitted to a polygraph examination regarding the above case. The exam was a Utah specific, which has 11 questions and 4 charts were run. The examination was conducted by the undersigned on January 4th, 1996 at the Hollywood Police Department, 3rd floor, blah, blah, blah. Michael Monahan was given a polygraph agreement form and rights confirmation form. He read and advised he understood and signed both forms. At this time, the undersigned reviewed all 11 questions to be used on the examination. The following pertinent test questions were asked of the subject during the course of the test. In regards to the murder, do you intend to answer my questions truthfully? Yes. Did you deliberately cause the death of Adam Walsh? No. Do you know who murdered Adam Walsh? No. In conclusion, it is the examiner's opinion and the subject's responses on his polygraph examination indicated no significant signs of deception. And that was done by Curtis Navarro. So, again, we see these extensive polygraph questioning somebody that could be a probable... I mean, I don't know. I would definitely be looking into this guy because look at his record, Megan. And this is a hat tip to our good friend, Mike, Hollywood Reporter. He sent these over. This is Monahan's record. And this is 89, let's see, 89, 89, 94, 89, 94. So this is all prior to his polygraph. And they didn't question him more than that. Look, I mean,
possession in 98 too. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Threatens order to
here
extort.
we go. We have the son of a guy who has a very questionable background in dealings, John Monahan, with the Cessna planes cleared out, going back and forth to the Bahamas, the hotel. industry, which we know is the number one trafficking, hubs and all of that stuff. And then here's his son, who was actually best friends with James Campbell. That's how my dad met James Campbell. Was he was best friends since they were young with Michael Monaghan, and he would be over at the Diplomat Hotel running around the pool and doing that. Again, my dad meeting him at about 12 or 13 years old, and then I guess befriending him. What do we call it? Befriending him, and then he's again the godfather, and somehow
Hmm.
part of the family with my parents and their child. So there's that.
I'm good. That's going to be
We're just
trademarked. There's that.
checking
I
through
want that on
it.
a hat and a T-shirt or something.
I mean, yeah. What do we say? Yeah, there's that. Maybe that'll be next week's
That's going to be in
surprise.
the merch store when we open the
Yeah,
merch store. Yeah.
it'll be. I'll have to make one. Here we go. But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, what do you say to this stuff? But again, here's Michael Monaghan. He has a shady, and also I have to include that he was about 27 or 28 years old because he was a little bit older than James, who was 25 at the time, right? When Adam's taken. And I had always assumed, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I had always assumed, like many of us do, that he was like young when this happened, right?
Hmm.
Like maybe a teenager or something, especially after hearing this that I'm about to say. Well, Michael Monaghan, apparently a couple days after Adam was taken, or something in the vicinity of the time of Adam being taken, he was actually at a skate park. And he got into an argument with a younger boy or something that was skating there. And he got very mad, and he had a machete, which, if anyone knows the case, they say that a machete was used to cut off Adam's
Yeah.
head.
Hmm.
Um, and so there is a machete incident that
Wow.
happens days around
Okay.
Adam taking by this Michael Monaghan, and he went after a boy at the skate park who ran into one of the a pool room or utility room, I guess you would say. Um, and that Michael kept, through the door, kept whacking the machete, at this other guy, child. I don't know how old he was, but a teenager or whatnot, through the door, and he got in trouble for that. And I think that also added to them maybe wanting to question
Hmm.
him. But nonetheless, that was, this part is kind of never talked about. Maybe it's frivolous. Maybe
Maybe.
he, maybe it has nothing to do with it. So that's why.
Well,
But
I mean, he's 20 years old at the time. If
yeah, and then we see him later, kidnapping, extorting, and horrible things that he does prison time for. Later in
right.
his life. I'm eating dinner too. Sorry, guys.
Well, the person he's chasing around. I mean, he's 20 years old. He's born in 61. It's 81. So he's
Hmm.
20. I mean, I wonder how old this kid is he's chasing around with a machete. I mean,
Hmm.
kid, I mean, maybe he's 15, 14, something like that. Maybe he's 18. I don't know. Maybe he's an adult. But still, nonetheless, like you said, he's chasing somebody with a machete. And how peculiar that a machete was used, supposedly, in the beheading of Adam. I mean, that's one of the key pieces of evidence that I think it had electrical tape around the handle and stuff, and it disappeared for a while, and it was in the back of the car that
Well,
supposedly he was murdered in.
and then the Hollywood police say that they mishandled it as evidence. They
Hmm.
found a machete with blood on it. They mishandled that as evidence. They lost the entire car. Then they then switched from a van to a car. Then they lost that car. Um, they lost a lot of evidence or mishandled it. So none of it could be used, which is really amazing, isn't it?
It
Um,
is. Now there was no
mhm.
DNA back then. They didn't have any DNA testing in 81, but they did try. I think later on they did try to run some DNA on it, on supposedly on some of the other items, and it was just too old. It wasn't registering, and I don't even know if that's true. I don't know enough about DNA testing if that's true, if it's
It's very
something that
hard to
happens
believe.
often. I don't know.
You can usually get DNA off of anything, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, like a
Also,
hair strand or something.
I realized that my parents don't have anything of Adams at all. They said that, oh, oops, we don't have anything of Adams because they came in and they covered everything with black powder to look for fingerprints. And you and I discussed that earlier. As a
Hmm.
mother, I would say, oh, can I have a shirt from the bottom of the pile in his drawer that probably won't have a fingerprint on it, or could I keep something of my child's, so there's no DNA there. The body was never found. All of the evidence was mishandled. The head was kept on ice when DNA could happen. They did a mitochondrial test that got botched in the lab, and then they cremated the head. So here we are.
There's that.
There's that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well let's
fighting
go
it,
into you were fighting. I know you were biting your tongue. I saw it. Okay, so let's go into this. Let's talk about. We're kind of bouncing around tonight, but this is going to lead into the evidence next week. So, because we need to preface it before we get into the actual physical evidence and show pictures, and then the actual documents and all the other things that go with it. But we wanted to get to the case was actually closed after a set amount of time. No murderer was found. They had supposedly done this thorough investigation, looking through all the leads they had and stuff, but it wasn't leading anywhere. So do you know what year it was actually closed when it was considered unsolved? Do you know what year that was, Megan?
I was there. You put me on the spot. Was it like 97 or something?
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was 96, but it might be, yeah. 96. It's somewhere late 90s, somewhere around there. I know that. But
I remember where I was in the world when I had to fly down all of a sudden to a press conference that we already knew what was happening, but yet we were all supposed to act, sad and, surprised, all that stuff.
Yeah. So your dad was concerned if the case was reopened that this is what he said. He said police and prosecutors say their main fear is that by releasing the records, crucial details known only to the killer could become public knowledge. There are definitely portions of that file that should be let loose, said Paul Dungan, administrative assistant to Hollywood Police Chief Richard Witt. So I don't know why in the world, I get it. It's a cold case, right? And if I was a parent, I was trying to put myself in your parents' shoes. And I was thinking, okay, if I was a parent and my son was murdered and nothing had been found at, what is it? Fast forward, 18 years or whatever it is. There would be no closure. I would say, no, let's open it up and let's re-examine it and let's check into it and see if we can find somebody or chase some of these other leads. That would be my own preference as a parent.
And they had that option, Gino, for the almost 20 years leading up to that. They had that option. And then we see Mark, I believe it was Detective Wagner, coming in and saying, I don't want to misspeak. What was I don't have my book in front of me today. But, we have then later, the detective coming in for this when the records want to be open. So I should give background. So later, the Greelan with the Broward Bulldog was the publication at the time, and Willis Morgan, who has provided all these documents through, again, everyone can find them at justiceforadam.com. They actually put in great effort. They faced retaliation and threats to file for the case files to be opened finally. I mean, this case, again, has been controversial since the day it happened. So, I think that they felt that there was enough time that had been let, and given respect to the family, and that it was time for these records to be released. And so they did file motions. They went through the courts to get these released. And my parents, I think we have a clip tonight. Am I right?
We do. I was going to show a bunch of the papers at the time we're talking about it too.
Okay, but hang on. Let's finish things. We are skipping all over tonight. So let's just stay on something for a second before we go to that, because I already lost my train of thought. So they filed in the courts in Broward County, Miami, or Hollywood area to have the records released. They were fought, my parents fought it. They had attorneys. As we see, they were saying that, we want to keep investigating. There might be new leads. And then we see a detective come in to the trial and say suddenly that he had new leads. And from most of the people that have studied this case extensively, we have all come to and those are, professionals and investigative journalists and things. We've pretty much come to the conclusion that that was a tactic to, buy time or keep it closed, that there really were no new leads. And that was the thing about it, is that there weren't leads. there weren't leads and my parents weren't being looked at, and the three closest to the child, where we know that 93 to 95% of the time when something happens, or especially a sexual nature or a predatorial nature, that it's usually someone close in the family or close to the family. So when none of that's being looked at, there's no suspects coming forward. The case is trying to be opened when we've already had my parents, dropping the Sears case because the judge would not exclude James Campbell's
Hmm.
testimony. She thought that that was stating clearly that that was very important, integral to the case and to the hearings, because that showed why Adam would have gone missing, or what the situation in the household and in the family leading up to this child's disappearance, what that was. And as what we've found from James, and others that knew them, that it was a very, what we found, the drug use, the promiscuity, everything we've talked about so far. So she felt that it was very pertinent to the hearings and the case at hand, as far as them suing Sears, because they were trying to hold Sears accountable for his disappearance. Okay, I guess
Right.
because of the security guard. But then again, we go back to that letter, which might be crude, but it's very accurate to the logistics. We're not talking about the emotional manipulation that was put out in the narrative, in the public. We're not talking about you grab your chest and this little boy was taken. This is police work, and this is logistics, and this is what happened, whether you like how it sounds or not. The child was left by a mother who was, known for drug use and promiscuity and, different things of that nature, despite what has been put out. Which, if you were John Reve Walsh, would you put that out there? I don't think anyone,
Mm.
any of us would, exactly, if you didn't have to. So we have all these different, no suspect, no anything, which then we suddenly see Otis Toole pop up, I mean, he had confessed, sooner than that, but we see him being this constant, like, go to possibly close the case and eventually. So, I think that they were very right to open. I remember at the time the inside talk with my parents, and they were very panicked and saying, we can't have this be. And, I think on the last show I brought up that I was at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach at a big, fundraiser for the National Center, and they were talking about this. And I went and snuck out and went to the payphone because I was determined I was going to call this judge and tell him, that he was a creep for, in other words, for, releasing these files. And then when I grew up, and realized the real situation and all the different angles of it, as an adult, then obviously, I understood why that happened, and I'm actually glad. Aren't we glad that that happened? I'm very
We sure are.
thankful. But they did fight for a long time, and they fought to close the Sears case to cover the truths of their lifestyle at the time of Adam. They did this here, and then we also have accounts of not only myself but others, where if you have a different narrative or you question this narrative, then you will be retaliated against and threatened, and usually using CPS and taking your children. And that sounds wild, but that's where, what we do have proven, actually.
Right. Yeah. Well, these were some of the articles that were written about it. There was a whole bunch in the Justice for Adam files. If you want to go look at those, I believe that was in box 2, and you can search through them. There's just tons of them. Willis did a great job assembling all this stuff. And then again, it was I forgot to read the part where your dad was talking about it. He said, I think Mr. Walsh has a big concern, Seth said. He wanted once and for all to have this case solved, and he doesn't want to see anything happen that would jeopardize the effective prosecution. So I'm not really understanding that, Megan, because there's no one to prosecute. So how is anything going to be effective for the prosecution? Am I misunderstanding that?
Well, right. I said it
Like that
earlier.
doesn't.
This whole case, when we look at it, is like hearsay there, hearsay where. I mean, I'm looking from a logistical standpoint where I want to pull the evidence out. I want to pull the facts and the proof of what led to these things. And I have had a very difficult time. It's also why we're here, skipping around, and why we're
Mm-hmm.
questioning things and stuff, which, again, my dad was, very articulate in the beginning to say that the police were messing this up and they were botching the case. And whether that was for something down the line like police state and more federalized stuff, I don't know. But, to begin with, they, were very much criticizing it. And what I find interesting is that when we look at the other questioning, like we did from the previous shows of James Campbell, the detectives were actually accurately asking them, was there neglect in the house or to this child? Was, why, of course, when you're sleeping with her, you're not thinking of it as you and her as brother and sister, or else that would be, an incestual relationship. You keep referring to her and my mother, Reve, as you and her having this brother sister closeness. And, they were asking these hard questions, as ugly as it might be. I mean, we have a child that's, only, ahead at this point. I hate to say it. And they were trying to find out what was going on. So
It does seem
I
like part of the
respect
department.
that.
Yeah, I mean, some of the department was doing their job, some of the department wasn't, and you just wonder, like, was there a relationship with your father and some of the guys that weren't doing
That's
the
what I
job,
asked.
and they're playing
I
both
asked
sides,
that.
right? They're just legit
Yes.
trying to legitimize, like your dad's like, oh, these guys didn't do their job, they screwed up, they botched the whole investigation, and yet that was the plan from the beginning. It's just, I don't know. That's kind of my thought on it, but
It could have
because
been. And, the fact that they're going, there's the whole opposition there, like, are we trying to say that they're bad for other things, or were they, but we also know, I brought it up before, that the Miami, when we look at history and what was happening in that area at the time, this was promiscuity, this was drug use, it was
yeah,
cartels going around, cocaine cowboys. I mean, this is not far from, we have to put ourselves in that time and look at, other things besides just the narrative and just the case that we've been given. And they didn't want to give us these portions of the case either. So we're looking at stuff that they fought to keep hidden. But then that's what I also asked, John Monahan's son. I said directly, I had a gut feeling, and I said, did your father have any sort of relationship with the Hollywood Police Department? And again, the Hollywood Police Department was located right across the street from the Sears Mall,
hmm
conveniently. Um, so I asked him that, and he said, like, without, before I even could finish, he said, of course, like, he was the hotel exec. If somebody got busted, or, drunk driving or something like that, you say, hey, do you want to come to this VIP party this weekend? I'll give you a suite this weekend at the hotel, you and your wife, just let this one slide, especially when you have, celebrities and diplomats, politicians coming all in and out of your hotel, and what's going on there. So yeah, they definitely, he said that they had a relationship, like a barter system and a setup. And I knew that, I had a feeling. And then of course my father's under him, as working as his guy, and and all of that. So why wouldn't there be any connection? But also, what I want to bring up to that, I would like to add that again, we have at that time and right before Adam, we even have the Miami Homicide Department, being busted for, detectives and
hmm
people within working with the mob. So I mean, and we have to start understanding what police corruption is. I'm not like, defund the
yeah,
police,
defund the
but
police. Yeah.
I'm not defund the police, but I'm also not
No.
back the blue. First of all, that's a desecrated flag and that's a gang sign.
hmm
But what we are dealing with does need to be addressed in a very realistic way, because police departments are part of trafficking. They're part of these issues in many circumstances, and we have to start owning that. Just like if family members are part of a child being molested or a child being taken,
Right.
and
And we
these are
discussed that
happen.
last week that the
Mhm.
sheriff in your own case hasn't defended it, his own jurisdiction. I mean, that's his duty to protect you, and has done absolutely nothing in your case with your children.
Yeah, but
And
that's the
why?
whole
We
thing,
have to
is
ask
that
the question why.
because it's corruption, because my
hmm
father campaigned for him literally the year before they, he got in months before they did this to me. My father campaigns. This is a small town, this is good old boy system. And my dad was best friends for 40 years with the previous sheriff, Daryl Lore, who then retired. and has been accused very much so. And I believe that the state even admitted that he did, had been trafficking drugs through Indian River County for 40 years. I mean, we know how it's done. We know where they were bringing the drugs in to the private club here in town on the private barrier island, because it's out of jurisdiction. It's a jurisdiction of its own. And they would use landscape trucks, and they would go into the development when the snowbirds were gone on their expensive properties on the water. They would bring the drugs in and put them on the landscaping trucks and take them out and distribute them from there. So, I mean, we've known in Indian River County since, it seems to be a weird thing that all this kind of started around the time that Adam's remains are found in Florida. So the head is found in Vero Beach, excuse me, in Indian River County. So it is interesting to hear, the head of what was found in Indian River County. And we know that John Monahan, his boss, was coming up here prior to, Adam's disappearance for quote unquote business. So there was already a presence, in the area that Adam's remains were found, and then we end up moving up there. So it's all these different things that kind of add up to being very questionable, I guess is my point here of bringing up the random facts put together.
Very questionable. All right, well, here's the judge making the ruling on the case being reopened.
The courtroom was full. It was the 11th hour. Broward Circuit Judge Leroy Moe had already been through 2 hearings in 8 months. He'd already ruled the case file should be open to the media. But prosecutors wanted one last chance to delay, if not stop, the release of a 14-year-old investigation.
We need to further investigate this case, and the harm that can be done is irreparable, in my opinion, to a successful prosecution of the killer or killers of Adam Walsh.
Adam Walsh's mother, Reve, the woman on the right, sat in the corner of the courtroom hoping to speak to the judge directly. He would hear only from her attorney.
What we're here for and what this is about is giving the responsible authorities the opportunity simply to do their job.
In the end, the judge remained unmoved that the case was close to being solved, that these last-minute motions were anything but delaying tactics.
And the release of this material will not be prejudicial or cause irreparable harm to the state or to its case. Based on that, the emergency motion to stay is denied.
Denied. So that was Judge Mull. Was that the one, Megan, you were talking about? You were...
Sorry, guys, I'm dealing with a needy dog.
Oh. Dog, a cat. You had the train earlier. You got it going on.
It's wild around here,
It's crazy.
So, anyways, what were you saying, Gina?
What was that the judge that you were at first? You're like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? How could he do this?
No, I was gonna. Oh yeah, that was him. That I was like, how can he do this? I'm gonna get this guy, because I'm John Walsh's daughter, at 14 or something. I'm saying, I don't remember what it was. And but no, I was gonna say that I want to give credit to this judge, which I don't do these days at all. But again, why I say that is to revert back to the first judge with the Sears case, who did say, no, I think this is integral to the case. And here this judge is making the decision that I do believe is right, that, the record should be released for the public to be able to see. And my parents did fight tooth and nail. My mom did show up. I think her expressions in that video are very telling and interesting. I know that woman. And so actually they, my mom, the thing in the family or behind the scenes was this whole, again, victim narrative of, the judge wouldn't let me testify in court because he said he doesn't want emotions to get in the courtroom, which I agree with, at that point, when they're trying to due to the nature of the case, I don't think that emotions shouldn't be allowed in courtrooms, but I think that due to the nature of what was going on and being ruled on, I do agree with that, and now I see why. I think that maybe the judges and people around that time knew a little bit more than maybe we do as well. So there's that.
I was also thinking, they were trying to pin this thing on Otis Toole, right? So what if they were trying to shut the thing down so the evidence could be never looked at again, hidden in the dark, and then they push this narrative going forward and pin it on this. I mean, let's face it. We talked about this earlier. This Otis Toole wasn't the most handsome man alive. Okay, you're not going to find him on a GQ cover.
It's absolutely disgusting and terrifying. And of course, you wouldn't question, that if this guy did it or not. And that's
Right.
when I started looking at, Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas interviews. And Otis even says, like, straight to everyone, he's laughing. He's like, you guys read too many books. He's like, we were chosen by the CIA to
Hmm.
be trained assassins. We were trained in the Everglades, which actually does have a military base. And, people have tried to dispel this, and I'm not saying he was true. We can't believe a word these guys say.
No.
So
No.
that's beforehand. But they do have moments of truth, and they do laugh and tell you sometimes, a lot of the time, and mixed in the lies. So my point here is that the real message there was that that there were people, that were individuals that were chosen to be the ugly faces for the
Yes.
media, to cover for the ones that were really doing these crimes, whoever that was. So
Right, and it's a perfect picture to paint if you go forward from 96 to, I believe it was 2014 when they finally solved the crime. Matthews helped solve the crime. So if you think about it, they're painting this picture that all the evidence is buried. They could move forward. They could pin it on this guy and his gay lover, and it's still kind of taboo right around that time, right? Not many people, they're like, oh wow, he's gay and he's ugly and he's kind of like mentally challenged, and he's got all these serial killers, and they're on the loose, and they're
together, and they're murdering people, and then
and they're chopping heads off.
Well, Otis Toole originally said that Henry Lee Lucas was with him when he did it, which automatically nullifies any of his truths or his confessions, because Henry Lee Lucas was locked up at the time that Adam was taken. So that was ruled out and absolutely impossible. So we'll get to Otis one day, but there's a lot there.
There's
a lot
a ton.
of cocaine, a lot of recanting, a lot of fake letters written by his prison roommates saying that it's him. So we'll get into that.
It just seems to me like if you're trying to cover something, that's the perfect way to do it. You bury the records, and then you paint this guy as the guy that did it. He's a nut job. He's whacking heads off with his machete, scare the public, and then, oh good, we got the bad guy. He's off the streets now, and it solves the murder, the 27-year-old murder at the time.
A lot of people, I agree with you. And I if people look at even the Dahmer possibility, right, of Jeffrey Dahmer, but then people will argue, people automatically take that out because they say, oh, he wasn't into young boys, did all this stuff. Well, neither was Otis Toole. Nowhere in their track records are they messing with little boys. I mean, Dahmer actually was more, had more rumors about that than even Otis Toole did. So
that's true.
Otis Toole was only ever proven to literally do the arson that he was originally arrested for. Same with Henry Lee Lucas and the original murder that he was arrested for.
Yeah. You know what I found interesting, and this kind of ties in with Otis Toole. We might as well go there right now. Detective J.W. Terry was eyeing a book deal while pushing Otis Toole into a confession. I found this article, and this is. You think there's a conflict of interest? Yeah. You think there's a conflict of interest? Yeah.
Yeah.
was looking for a book deal. Yeah.
Otis Toole saw what Henry Lee Lucas was doing in Texas under Bush, and he saw that Henry was confessing to everything that the police brought to him, and the police were happy to do it because they were able to close cases and they were getting great recognition for it. And in return for that, Henry Lee Lucas says himself, he says blatantly to you, if you were sentenced to life for the rest of your life in prison, then you had an opportunity to become the nation's most notorious serial killer. He's like, I did it. I became that. So that's what I became, and why is because of the incentives. He calls it milkshakes and fried chicken, like I said before. And it's like, and when you look at, people can refer to Henry Lee Lucas if you want a quick update or, a compressed, kind of dump on you about Henry Lee Lucas. You can watch the Netflix series, The Confession Killer. Otis Toole's also in that. And Otis states clearly, like, I just want to get to Texas and be with Henry because we're lovers and I see all the perks. So, I mean, they were very, they were playing games, and then they would also, have fun telling everybody what was really going on and then laugh about it afterwards. So Their
And then a
career.
side note, the side note with Henry Lee Lucas was he was the only man ever pardoned by George Bush as governor of Texas, right? Out of like 50 people or something, 51 people.
Yeah, he
Which,
was standing execution.
yeah,
Right before his execution, Bush pardoned him, and Bush was known for never pardoning anybody. So,
never. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
we see Bush and my dad in the Rose Garden later on the anniversary of Adam's death, signing the Adam Walsh Act, which I was there for in the Rose Garden. And I find it interesting that you would sign a bill and work with a president who pardoned the lover of your son's murderer. But that's just me, I guess, these days. So there's that.
That's so strange.
Yeah.
And he's oh gosh, I'm almost speechless. He's the crime fighter, right? He's the guy that's getting the scumbags off the street and all this stuff. And yet George Bush let the guy go that's implicated in the crime. It's so bizarre. Like, I don't even know how you make this
I mean,
up.
they had
Like,
ruled him out, Gino, so that's fine.
right.
But literally, he
Well,
pardoned this
but he's
alleged serial killer.
the
Even if that's
lover. He's the
and you're
lover.
still,
Yeah.
but even if it was like, oh, this guy has pardoned serial killers before, I'm not going to go, work with him.
True.
And then furthermore, nail in the coffin is that it's a lover of the guy that says he killed
That's
my
what I'm
son.
saying. Yeah. That's just bizarre. So bizarre. All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Can you please explain your theory of the Finders cult and how it ties in with your brother's death, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll go through the information and stuff because, again, I have a hard time blatantly saying things out. There's also legalities we have to watch out for. So, but the Finders call. Okay, so we are gonna rapidly switch gears, Gino. Okay, so the Finders call to give people that aren't familiar that are viewing tonight a little background on the Finders cult. So the Finders Cult was established by the CIA. We do know that from the in the last recent few years, declassified documents. So the CIA does admit that the Finders was originally started as a computer-based operation. They were lawyers, accountants, people within society that, did have knowledge of that kind of stuff or was of interest, would be able to contribute to their operation. And they basically the CIA says that they went rogue. I don't believe that. I think that they're very controlled. I think we know better than that. I don't think the CIA just lets things go rogue. But basically, in 1987 in Jacksonville, Florida, in a park, there was two gentlemen in black suits, white shirts, black tie, black thin ties, mustaches, and they had 6 children and a van. And people called, the authorities on them because the children looked extremely disheveled, almost like the security guard's account of the boy that she saw in Sears that day. So these children were very disheveled. The accounts were saying that they appeared to, not be clean and not be fed, that kind of a thing. So the authorities go, they arrest the 2 adult men that are with these 6 children. The 6 children were all nonverbal except for the oldest little girl. And the gentleman told the authorities that they were from Washington, D.C. Now, remember the Franklin scandal and the McMartin case and Larry King and all of this with, boys and the White House and everything. We won't go into that. But the Finders cult said that they were, that these were children that they had permission from the parents to take, and they were taking down, these were gifted children. Now, remember, 5 out of 6 are nonverbal. The 6th is barely verbal. So these were, in their account, gifted children that their parents had given permission to take to Mexico to a gifted school, to a gifted program, and that they had stopped at the park on the way. And I will say, while I'm saying this right now, The Sound of Freedom gave an international child trafficking narrative when actually the reality of that case was also a man in the community grooming, a grandmother that had custody of her two children. He was allowed to take this boy, and he took the boy back and forth to Mexico and brought him back over the border. So I will put that out there. Please look into the actual case from that, that they're saying is that the movie is an accurate depiction of, because it's not. So the finders said that they were taking them to Mexico to a gifted school. The gentleman ended up getting arrested. The children were taken into DCF custody in Florida. The mothers were contacted. The mothers actually refused to show up. The mothers went along with it. This is where the cult, comes in, and how it was kind of revealed. The mother said that, yes, we gave permission, and they were taken. Now, what was also found in the van, so again, they have a van, which again, originally the account of Adam being taken was by a van. And so they did have a van, and in that van was a computer. And being CIA connected, they obviously had a computer that was a higher operating system than the average civilian would have had access to. And they could also plug in their phone and send out messages and emails, different things of that sort. So what they were doing with that computer, they come to find out, is that they were, putting, again, under this guise of gifted program, and these parents and everything, that it's almost like boarding school or something, I would think of, like, oh yeah, we're sending them off. But what they were doing was creating a network or a catalog of parents and their children, what children they were taking, what children they were swapping, which is what leads to what we find out about the Finders cult was their lifestyle. As far as, it was more of this, it takes a village. It was a communal upbringing for their children. The children were actually purposefully weaned from the mothers and were raised by other mothers within the cult. So this is where that rumor or that possibility or the reality that we're finding out of, children being taken through adoption, their names changed, their birthdays changed, and being given to other families. And it's kind of what we're seeing. I mean, it is what we see in the modern day Child Protective Services, CPS or DCF system. And to me, it very much looks like between the National Center and our modern CPS system, that it is a larger, manifested vision of what the Finders were doing. And they were doing that network of the families and the children they were taking, where the children were going, and things like that, which then would bring you back to kind of that letter that we saw that was saying, there was a man who had already lost his child and his wife was going crazy. He offered $10,000 cash. We took it and we went and got a kid. So, and that we couldn't, again, that letter, we couldn't derive whether there was a child before Adam in that context of that, or whether he was referring to Adam. So if anyone has thoughts or can help us delineate that from that letter, that would be great too. I know we had a moment on that. But so we've got the letters, we've got the different discrepancies, and again, we're here with that kind of stuff. So I could go on forever and ever. So sometimes I try to cut myself off.
No, that's great. It's your show, so they want to hear you.
So the Finders also, they were also known to have a warehouse outside of Washington, D.C., where they did have photography set up and different things like that. I brought this up on one of the other shows when we had Bill Collins, the other, another boss of my father's. My dad has all these bosses, doesn't he? So he, his wife coming out right after the Finders came out and saying, I'd seen similar pictures and Polaroids while we were arguing, of naked children on rugs, which seemed to be in like a setting, and that's what they had found in the warehouse in Washington, D.C. So they did do, like we see with the McMartin case, which is the preschool, and I highly recommend everyone to look into it. These people were originally convicted or, charged, and then we see through trials and different things that it fades off, or that they end up getting away with it. The children were returned to the mothers. The gentleman spent some time, I believe, in Tallahassee, and that's actually when all of the Finders moved down to Tallahassee to support them and to do all of this. So this is a literal cult. And they were connected to the CIA. They were taking children and they were switching them around and raising them in a Hillary Clinton, Margaret Sanger, It Takes a Village setup. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's so much more to
So
the
bizarre.
Finders cult, but that's it in a nutshell. And then we see a van that's then switched to a Cadillac with Adam. We see, my mother, having others living in the house, younger men living in the house, taking care of her child, obviously, distant from her child more so than normal. And there's always been this big push about, my dad, when he says something over and over again, you should really question it, especially when he's adamant about it. And he's always very adamant to be like, Reve was such a wonderful mother, Reve was this and that. And yeah, I mean, people could even argue that. I play devil's advocate. Oh, well, Meghan, maybe you had a different experience of her because it was after Adam. But I also know my family and I also know my mother. And a lot of it wasn't new after Adam. A lot of it was pre-existing.
Right.
And we
Wow,
see that. We see that with Jim and pawning her son off and, the lover being upset about it and all that. So there is proof to that.
Right. So I got this video of the Finders, and it's pretty much everything you just touched on. You did such a great job articulating it. But I'm still going to play it because... Yeah, I know. Well, because I didn't know you were going to be so thorough with it. It was so amazing. It was like you were writing it for me. But I'm going to go ahead and play it anyway because I think there's some interesting stuff in here, and at least you get the video. Because I got to be honest, I know about the Finders. I just didn't know the depths of it until I met you, and you started explaining how it could possibly tie in with Adam and even stuff before that. And I knew, CIA involvement. The clowns in America are involved in everything. We know that. So I just find it fascinating. Like, this does make sense. I could see this being the origins of how this all starts with Adam. I could definitely see that. And it's very...
I'd take a chance and put it up on Twitter a couple of days ago. And, I really thought people were going to say, okay, Meghan, now you're really off your rocker. But I got more. So this finally makes sense. So let's
It makes sense to me. It makes a lot of sense because think of the CIA. We know they're involved in everything. And so why wouldn't they? Yeah. Why wouldn't they be involved in trafficking children and cocaine and weapons? Right. All these things. Like it makes total sense.
We know that goes hand in hand. Drugs and arms trade go hand in hand with human and child trafficking. So
absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to play the video. I think it's about 3 minutes long. We'll be back.
The satanic cult that runs the world.
It was the 1980s. Among the decade's trends of arcade games, horror movies, and big hair, a growing fear was sweeping the United States, known as the Satanic Panic.
To describe this story as horrifying would be an understatement.
The rise of heavy metal music with supposed hidden messages, Dungeons and Dragons, and new stories about satanic cults and rituals taking place fueled the growing hysteria.
The evidence is in. Satan worship and satanic cult are growing rapidly, and adherents of these ideas are becoming more vocal and more dangerous.
But in the end, that's all this was, right? Just hysteria. On Wednesday, February 4th, 1987, an anonymous call was made to the Tallahassee Police Department. The call stated that 2 well-dressed men were seen watching over 6 dirty and unkept children, ages 2 to 7, at a playground in Myers Park, Tallahassee. According to an official report of investigation, the children were covered with insect bites and very dirty. Most of the children were not wearing underwear, and all the children had not been bathed in many days. Whereas the 2 men were found wearing suits and ties. Even more disturbing was their vehicle, a 1979 Dodge van. Inside the van were maps, books, letters, 20 floppy disks, a computer, and a mattress. The vehicle was also described as being foul-smelling. and it appeared as though all 8 of them had been living inside that van for quite some time. The 2 men explained to the police that they were the children's teachers, and that they were driving to a school for brilliant children in Mexico. Police asked the men where the children's mothers were, to which they said they were being weaned from their mothers. The men were arrested on multiple accounts of child abuse, and all 8 of them were taken into custody for further questioning. The men identified themselves as Michael Houlihan and Douglas Ammerman. When questioned, the 2 men were initially apprehensive to communicate. Some reports claim that one of them wouldn't cooperate at all and would enter a trance-like state. Authorities turned their efforts to questioning the 6 children, and this is where things started to get unsettling. The children were identified as Mary Houlihan, Max Livingston, Benjamin Franklin, Honeybee Evans, BB, and John Paul Houlihan. Evidently, these were not the children's real names because they didn't have proper names. According to the police, 5 of the 6 children were uncommunicative and didn't seem to recognize common items or modern technology, such as typewriters, hot water, or electricity. The 6th and oldest child, Mary, showed signs of sexual abuse. Mary fortunately was able to communicate and give information to investigators. Here's some of what she said. Mary confirmed that the 2 men were indeed their teachers. However, she wasn't sure where they recently were or where they were going. When asked what her last name was, she replied, "Which one?" She stated that they lived in Washington in a house with other children and adults. She and the other children mainly survived on a raw fruit and vegetable diet, but were visibly malnourished and only fed as a reward for good behavior. When asked what the 2 men taught them, she responded with, "How to play games." She said they would receive instructions from their leader, a man known as the game caller or game leader, later to be known as a man named Marion Petty. Based on what Mary said, the Tallahassee police decided to contact the DC police in an attempt to identify the 6 children, only to learn that they were already aware of this group, who called themselves the Finders. According to a 1987 article from the Washington Post, one of the first newspapers to publicize this event, records from the U.S. District Court in Washington showed that an anonymous, confidential source told authorities that the Finders were a cult that conducted brainwashing techniques at a Northeast Washington warehouse and an apartment building near Glover Park. This source told of being recruited by the Finders with promises of financial reward and sexual gratification, and of being invited by one member to explore Satanism with them. According to the affidavit, the source told authorities that the children were used in rituals by the members, and though the source had never witnessed abuse of the children, the source said the children's grandparents feared for their safety. And so, on the following Thursday and Friday, Washington police raided these 2 areas that were given to them by this confidential police source. Furthermore, evidence found within the seized vehicle pointed to a 90-acre Virginia farm owned by a man named George Marion Petty. Virginia State Police were contacted to visit and search the area as well. At the warehouse in Washington, police found that the windows were boarded shut, and the building was padlocked with a heart-shaped lock. Inside were newspapers and mattresses scattered across various rooms, as if someone had lived there. On one wall were shelves with obscure books, and on the other was a huge map of the entire world. Most disturbingly, DC police uncovered large plastic bags filled with wallet-sized photographs. According to the US Customs Service, some of these photos were of children, similar to school photos, naked children, children engaged in what appeared to be cult rituals involving the slaughtering of goats with 3 men wearing white robes, and one photo in particular that showed a child in chains. At the apartment building near Glover Park, neighbors were questioned and confirmed that 2 of the photographed children lived in that building. They also explained that only women and children lived there, but that they would occasionally see men visiting the house. One woman said that the children were often so dirty that they were easy to notice. At the Virginia farm, neighbors reported that they often saw vans containing children that were brought to the farm. According to the Tampa Tribune, one of the neighbors, a woman named Wilma Richards, said, "They'd be hollering and crying all the time, like they wanted something or something was hurting them." Wilma also explained that when she first met Marion Petty, he introduced himself as a Boy Scout leader. Although her and her husband were suspicious of the dozen or so men and children seen at their farm, they never phoned the authorities. On Friday, February 6th, Scott Hunt of the Tallahassee Police Department said, "It is our belief these kids were not kidnapped, but that their parents gave them away because one of the rites of passage into this satanic organization is that you have to give up your rights to your children, and that the leaders of this organization can do what they want with your children." It was around this time that a series of telephone death threats were being made towards the 6 children. The calls were described as brief and untraceable.
Follow for part 2.
This is strange because the children were transferred to a private foster home, and the police were careful to keep their location a secret. The Palm Beach Post reported that the authorities do not know where the calls originated from or how they located the.
Whoa, that is some dark stuff right there, man. Holy crap. That is heavy and dark. Demonic.
Yeah, so there's that. It is. It's very dark and demonic, but also we have to remember who's behind it, the CIA, and the connections that these people had, and why the children would be put in private foster homes and then returned to the mothers, and why that lifestyle would be okay, why this would all be, again, back to McMartin, back to potentially Adam, and moving forward to even my children. There's correlations to exactly all of this. So yeah, that was a very good video. But it also brings in this denial in America of the satanic ritual abuse. And the Finders cult had a lot of, I'm actually glad about that, because I hate saying the dark stuff. You know me, Gino. So I'm glad that, that depicted it well, of the darker aspects. And of course, the head, what was his name there? The head of the Finders cult, I can only remember so many 20 billion everything.
I know.
But he was actually called, the important thing is that the cult called him the game caller. I'm gonna shut the door, excuse me. The game caller. So basically he would put out, calls and instructions like a game, and the Finders would go around and do what they were told to do. And I find it very interesting at the end there, to add, aside from the logistics, we don't need to rehash, you just watch the video, but there it says, the part of the cult is to give up your children to be raised by other people, which I think is a huge thing to look into when we are looking at CPS, at the people that developed it, and family courts and things like that, and how that is panning out is very much that way. Children being given up to be raised by other people, and that being along the satanic lines and occult ritual lines. Now, of course, the game caller, he did agree to do an interview. There's some wild photos. We should have pulled those tonight. I'm sorry, guys, but there's some wild photos if you look at when the game caller actually agreed to to do an interview and to talk with the police, so this is paid opposition, you guys. This is like
Mm-hmm.
the police pretending like they're handling this case for the public when really they're involved in, the deep government is involved behind the scenes. And then we see how that plays out. Same thing you will see with the McMartin preschool case. Same thing you will see with the Adam Walsh case. If we're saying we know that the CIA is behind the finders, but if these are, we're looking at patterns here. We're looking at, these are playbooks that are used over and over again that always have similarities. So, and this is the cult. I mean, people think it's like, Project Paperclip, or, think people say, oh, that never ended. We know that never ended, right? Well, the same thing with the Finders cult, or, NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Lovers Association, said that it ended and everything, when they're still having meetings to this day. It's like the Finders cult does still exist to this day, and they're in your communities. They're accountants, they're bankers, they're lawyers, they're CPS workers, and they're people that are close to your children that are taking them under the guise of being, community saviors, if you will. And that's what we have to start looking at. That's what we have to start, whether they want to say, oh, I'm a finder, I'm from the Finders Call. No, that's not going to be it. But they're still operating. They're still doing this. And now we have this, like I said, on a bigger scale. Now we have it in our face. It's with our tax money, in my perspective, and with, deriving it and studying it and all of that, the deducing it down. That's my assumption. When we do a comparative look at the Finders cult, Adam's case, and other I just said child sacrifice case. I think that was a Freudian slip, guys.
Freudian slip.
Child crimes, is that what we're saying, whether it's missing or murder or whatever, the larger cases, and then comparing those then to CPS, and as well as the National Center, and these systems that we're allowing that are now proving to be nefarious.
Add social workers and judges to that, and your recipe's complete to steal and traffic children.
I include that. They are.
Did you include that? Oh, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
They are judges. They are accountants. They are the lawyers.
Everybody.
They are in the police department. They are in. This is an operation. This is a cult, and this is what they believe. And and it is satanic. And we know that you can even correlate any of your Freemasons or anything like that in those organizations as having similar beliefs, if not actually connected to it.
Well,
that's what.
And then you could make one more connection with the CIA. I mean, the CAA, Creative Arts Association, right, in Hollywood, and now your dad becomes this big TV star on a burgeoning show that starts on a brand new network back in '88. I mean, if they're involved from the start, and then the other arm of the CIA is involved in entertainment, it seems like a perfect, hand in glove scenario.
I agree. And then again, it goes back to nobody looking at or even questioning, because of the horrific narrative that was given or the situation. Does anyone know who John and Reve Walsh were before Adam was taken? Did anyone ever look at that? We see that it was very, swept under the rug. We see by Joe Matthews, who later gains a lot and controls the narrative and falsely, accuses and convicts a dead man, by the way. We have a lot of these dead men that are convicted after the fact. I want people, also, that's a side note, but look at some of the cases and you'll see that a lot of dead men are accused after the crime is done.
Pinned with the crime.
Yeah. It's
dead
again
men
this
don't
fall
talk.
guy. It's a fall guy for these deeper culprits.
Right. Man, that is it. The connections, Meghan, the more I think about it, because I know you've talked about this extensively especially over the last 6 months. And I was making some of the connections, but it so well. And I was just kind of like surface learning. But after tonight, like, you've really articulated it well, along with that video, and then just putting it together with like possibly the CAA and how that would all work together just perfectly to commit these heinous crimes against children. and your dad being kind of the head of the whole thing, being, thrust into the spotlight, into the limelight, and becoming the hero of a nation. Like, wow, this guy overcame a horrendous situation with his own son. Look what he's doing. Look at all the good he's doing. He's rescuing children. He's getting scumbags off the street. And really, it's just to hide it all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if that's true. And I think that, a lot of people, I know it's a lot. I've never said outright, my father sacrificed my son. I know a lot of people online and, the internet, they mean well, but, oh, she says that he sacrificed his child and everything. No, I don't. I am sick of these dramatized, like the whole point of my life is like the public was given this emotional narrative that then made them not question anything. Like, I don't think that I don't put it in those terms. I want people to understand how these things may have happened. Again, I was never there. So this is my opinion. This is, my deriving from extensive and years and nights and long of study and research and history and all of it. And I've been very, how long have I been out speaking? And, I've been very careful, to wait for the time and with enough grounding and within myself knowledge to be able to present this possibility, which I find to be, no pun intended, I find to be very viable, actually. And again, with my parents' affiliations prior, their lifestyle leading up to it, having someone younger in the house that's sleeping with your wife, we see they're promised financial and sexual gratification. My father did gain a lot of financial a lot of financial gain, and he became a sex addict. So there's and my mom's being called a slut. So it's fun, guys. So there's that.
A lot of fun.
This is now getting annoying that I have to say this many times. But yeah, I mean, and it's hard for me to talk about, to be honest. So please, everyone, have grace with me and all of that when we're talking about these things, because it is hard for me. I don't enjoy this whatsoever, but I know that this is what we have to do, and I know that this is a duty, and I hope that more people will start to understand that things like this is their duty as well, especially when we're talking about protecting our children, because this case changed a nation, and it changed how children were raised and how they grew up and how parents were able to parent, and that trajectory moving forth for, to present day now, which we're seeing that needs to have definite change. There's definitely, like I say, better ways to what we're doing. But when we again can see Hillary Clinton and Margaret Sanger, Dr. Kinsey, all this adding up to this, it takes a village. And then we see the government with the CIA enacting this, finders operation. I mean, the name in itself is disgusting. Like the finders, like we're going to find you and we're going to get you. And literally, like with if we fast forward to today and the taking of my children, that was an ambush. That was a false flag event that my dad staged and made up and did the whole thing. They're also doing it behind closed doors, So, to watch how it's kind of transpired, and then to see how I was treated and the things that went down, and how my children are being now taken and weaned from their mother, and raised by nannies and others in a communal lifestyle, to see, even with my background in healing and psychology and things, like looking at psychology and my background in healing and trauma, for me to have grown up, before my children were taken, I was not only an advocate already speaking out against the corruption and CPS, and that being our child trafficking, but also I was developing what I thought was my inheritance. I wasn't just, I get to sit on a fat farm or an island or something. I was literally developing a community learning farm, for the community. And which I bring that up because it's interesting. It reverts back to that natural lifestyle, the weaning from it is finder's cult. Like it would be like if I was a derivative or like a grown up from that cult. I'm putting that sounds horrible the way I put it, but I've never really said it out loud before. But you know, if I had been raised in something of that programming and then grow up in that, and you know, they really downplayed it as, oh, we're just a group of people that live an alternative lifestyle. And what I was saying about, I totally lost track of it and we got on something else. But what I was saying about the game caller was that he actually did do his final interview in a Ronald Reagan mask. So anyone that follows me knows that, you know, my first stuff was with Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And things like that. So it's
that picture's right here on screen, down in the left corner. Yeah, that's baby Meghan being held by Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, and that was the second time. I actually was presented to him in the Rose Garden when I was about, I think I was 8 weeks old.
Yeah, when we had Kathy O'Brien on a few weeks ago, actually it's been longer than that. She actually had mentioned Reagan, and that was the one guy she said at that point, he hadn't been bought off yet. She felt like he was still maybe one of kind of teetering one way or the other. She wasn't sure. But then you said you had that weird situation where you woke up or remember being in cinder block room or something. I don't
know. Well, we have the picture. Wait, where is it? Let me pull from my files.
While you're saying that, Meghan, I want to defend something. You said this is very hard, you know, to obviously it's your, oh, cool. Yeah.
So here we have, I don't know with my background if we're going to be able to see it, but here we have a picture of my mother. And so this was, I'm going to say something. I'm going to preface this because it's real. So when everyone came out with this crazy QAnon stuff and saying, you know, there's no real QAnon, it's QAnon. But anyways, I tell John Walsh that because he testified and said that, you know, called me a domestic terrorist, a Trumper, and a QAnoner. So that I'm glad I was wearing a mask in court that day so no one could see my face. But when people start bringing up tunnels, which is very real, and that's why I want us all to find justice one day and be taken seriously if we can just ground these things, because the media and paid opposition made it was like the second coming of satanic panic, so that we all look ridiculous when we're talking about it. Okay, but when people started talking about tunnels, I was like, okay, this is a little crazy, but there are real aspects of it. And I literally just immediately recall, especially when people are like, there's tunnels under the White House, you know, all this. And I was like, well, duh, like under Disney, duh, like I've been in them. They take you as like a tour and stuff, and you don't know what's being done with them at night, or, you know, when you're not there, or different things, right? So when people were saying tunnels under the White House, I was like, well, wait a second. Yeah, I mean, I remember cinder blocks. I can tell you like the spray painted stencils on the corners telling you to go this way and that way, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then I ironically, you know, I have some of this old paperwork because my parents, after they took my children, you know, wanted to further do the psychological torment and drop off like a ton of random things at my house, like you're out, you're done, you know, we've taken your kids, and they happen to put a bunch of records in the stuff, you know. God is good. So anyways, and my dad wanted me to have like old keepsakes and pictures. So in the packet that they gave me, there's like some from from college and different things I have right here. But right in here, when people were bringing up tunnels, I was like, well, that's not ridiculous, because I've been down, you know, in civilized tunnels. I'm not saying I was in scary tunnels, but is that a thing? Like civilized tunnels, is that a thing? I guess. But okay, can we see? Okay, now with my background, you're not gonna be able to see it unless I go back. Okay, I had it for a second. Over here. So here's my mother, here's me, here is Senator Hawkins, here is Susie Struthers. So very nefarious people. And
Sally Struthers?
Sally Struthers is late. And these are
Time out. Wasn't Sally Struthers the one that was always on the commercials saying kids are hungry and they need to be fed? Was that her?
Yes, right here.
Back in the I remember
person.
that. Yep.
Very bad person. And here I am on like a platform with carpet. There's like people standing back here behind me with the carpet like lower. It's hard to do this backwards. Sorry, guys. The carpet's lower here. And then I'm on like a platform with some kind of like pillows back here. And here's my mother. We always had pearls on. and I always had princess dresses with a short haircut like a boy. And then right back here, it's hard because I can't put it closer because of the background, but right here is complete raw exposed cinder blocks. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry. I'm not a salesperson on
I can see
social
it.
media. So
Yeah.
anyways, I've posted it many times. If you go to my Twitter, I mean, not many times, but I have posted it like 1 or 2 times before. And then here I am in the same outfit that day. Oh, jeepers, guys. This here, the
Yep.
same outfit, but I'm above ground at the White House. And here's all the people catering to me and, grooming me. And should we keep going real quick, guys? Because it's right here. Here's me and my distant cousin. You can't see, but here's Drew Barrymore as a child. Anyways, but I pulled those because the tunnels and under the White House and different things that people,
Well, I love how they jump to this like thing. Oh, these people are crazy and they're conspiracy theorists and all these names and labels they give us. But it's always sensationalized. You ever notice that? Like, if it's true, they're going to go way to the extreme with it so that it sounds crazy. That's what they do with everything. And I know everybody watching this show, they understand it. They've been we've been awake for a long time.
Well, it's like the skin mags, like Inquirer, the Globe, all this used to be like, oh, don't ever. I remember growing up and be like, you don't even look at that. It's like that's so ridiculous. That's so crazy. And then we have my father, on the cover of the Globe, topless with a girl with a massage tool, Epstein style. I don't know what's going on here, and then I knew about that was a very real story that was on the Globe, and so. I mean, even the Inquirer in the beginning of my children being taken have reached out to me, and I wouldn't give an exclusive to anyone because I knew that was a controlled narrative then. And they asked me for an exclusive, and I turned it down. So they've remained quiet about it. Everyone that asked me for the exclusive. Project Veritas did. And when I turned down the exclusives, then they don't want to talk about it.
They go away. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I wanted to say something you said earlier, this is hard coming out against your parents, and I get that, but I want the audience to understand why Meghan's doing this if you don't know. Okay? She was pushed into a corner because her parents took her children away. This is very simple. They came in, they took her children. 4 children have been taken from Meghan's custody by her parents. So what is a mom supposed to do? Is she supposed to just go away and say, well, I guess they won, game over?
I want to cut you off for a second, actually, because I love where you're going, but I was doing this work about child trafficking, it being CPS, before my children were ever taken. I was questioning Adam's murder before they were taken. I was giving information to my father about different trafficking situations that I had seen, or not seen, but had been given a lot of evidence and led to, and yes, seen parts of through the industry. Okay. And to my father, I was giving him information about other cases of little girls being raped by their father in my father's hometown, connected through the sheriff's department. And I'm thinking that I'm, doing what's right. I'm thinking that that's what my family does. It's John Walsh. I mean, we expose people.
Right.
In terms of child protection and, protecting children and apprehending these predators, and all this stuff. So I'm thinking that it's going to be like, a good thing, right? And then when I start really questioning, who hypnotized, why was my mother hypnotized? Was it like Cindy McCain said about Epstein? You all knew what, was going on, but you didn't know what to do about it. You're the manhunter, child protector. Like, what's up, Dad? What are you guys doing about it? When I see the center, the national center, stating that 88 to 92%, that's only the reported, of child trafficking domestically in America comes from our foster care system, but then I see them doing nothing about it. They don't even put foster care on their website. It's missing from care, like a babysitter or somebody took you, So when these things didn't start adding up and I started really questioning, and then I started speaking up about the abuse that I had experienced personally, I kept grace about that. I don't, because I don't come out and I don't say anything. And I love you, Gino, but I didn't come out revealing this stuff because my children were taken. I was already talking about this stuff. I thought my parents would love to know if there were discrepancies in their son's murder case, that maybe we could find a real reason. I never would have thought that all of the evidence would point to them, or their lover or people associated to them, which we know is statistically more likely than three national serial killers. I didn't think that stuff. And so I thought that, what I was doing is something that would make my family proud, that my dad and I could bond over. He was my life, but then I also was speaking out, with my training, with having more outside experiences than interior experiences in the family at that point, as well as my career being healing and being a therapist, focused on trauma and specializing in trauma. That stemmed from me getting my own support. I had started realizing things, and I've always been the black sheep of my family. There's many situations that I've briefly touched on in other interviews in the past 2 years, about Passages Malibu and different instances, and the way that I was brought up and the treatment I got. So when I started becoming, when I became a mother and I started seeing my parents with my children also, and when I was with my children, you start realizing a lot. That's human nature. You start realizing a lot. You look at how your parents brought you up, stuff like that. And I did see them, whacking my kids once in a while, like they did to me, or alienating my daughter from me with their money, and all it's like, they say like the pedophiles groom kids with candy. It's like, I literally, my quote is that I didn't want my kids growing up like I did with the cake and cookie and candy. It's like my parents would abuse us, and then they'd say, here's all the material things, we'll take you shopping, here's this mansion you live in, you should be so glad. And that's exactly what I didn't want my children growing up in. I was advocating for children across this world, because everyone was focusing, or across this country, excuse me, and the world, because it is global, and it's not some crazy global pedophile ring like in that energy space. It's a very realistic issue that is going on. But I started speaking up about that and advocating, because I knew that it was more than the Epstein list. I kept hearing this, and I said, first of all, Les Wexner, who's the funder of Epstein and, gave him his whole power and power of attorney and everything, is a huge donor to the National Center through L Brands. And, we have Richard Branson and Hillary Clinton and the World Economic Forum and everyone, Jeff Koons, like one of the biggest creeps in our country that no one has any idea about, who's behind a lot of this. And, growing up on the inside, knowing these things, I obviously naturally made those connections and then questioned that. My dad used to always say I should have been on the debate team and I should have been a lawyer. And my mom was always mad, like I said, that I wasn't in politics. But I don't mean to be long-winded on it and go off of what you're saying, cut you up, because I do respect that, Gino, and your sentiment is real. But I need people to understand that this is retaliation to silence me. My father and mother wish that I would unalive myself and break, because they know that my children are my world. And that's why they did that. And they know that everybody's children are what I care about. I care about not just, and that's another thing, is it's not just about the children. I care about families, because I care about children. What breaks children is not having their families, not knowing their families, not knowing their place of origin. And for us to deny that as a society is so ignorant and destructive, and only sets us up for failure. So I know that. And that's why I do this every day. That's why I stand up, because I want fiction, Gino, will only create more fiction. My case was fiction. It's only created more fiction. And now my children are gone. CPS is creating fiction to take kids, and it's only making more fiction in all the craziness, right? Of tunnels and da da da. So we see that this is real. So for me, it is about getting to the root of the situations. When we know 88 to 92% only reported is from, the child trafficking from foster care, why aren't we ending foster care right now? Why aren't we nationally making an outcry as the people to end the foster care system, to end CPS. We know the Title IV funding. We're totally going off of, the content from tonight, but I think that this is important that you bring this up, and that is part of why I do it. So that's why I'm talking about this. We know the Title IV funding's there. We know the breakdown. We know the history behind it. We know how we all got to this. And this is not a conspiracy. For people to keep going on with that or to even buy into that is just, I mean, it's a, you're I hate to do that. Like, if you're silent, then you're part of it. But John Walsh himself says that silence is guilt. So he's been silent so far. And if America keeps being silent, then, let's follow his lead, since everyone wants to, keep, finding him as a hero. And I know who I'm talking about. I want everyone to know that. I don't think I've said that on the show yet in our 4 episodes. But I understand who I'm talking about. I mean, this was my savior.
Mm-hmm.
And, and when my real savior's in heaven, that's how messed up it is. He was my world, and I wasn't even, acknowledging my father in heaven at that point. I mean, yes, I'd always had a connection. We know I went into, I've been a religious scholar for over 20 years because I just love God and I want to know the truth, and I'm making my way. But the point is that God was not in my, it left my family. And what was there was a Catholic, presence to begin with. So anyways, that's getting off track, but I just wanted to say that that's why I do it. I thought that my parents, would be proud. I thought the work that I was doing, I know the work that I am doing was good, is good, and and it's what is necessary. But I thought that John Reve Walsh, the notorious child saviors, would really be proud of me. And instead it got real squirrely, real gnarly, and then all of a sudden I'm ambushed, and in a day I'm a child abuser, I'm a drug addict, I'm mentally ill, I'm everything that actually they are setting case precedent against everybody in this country by doing this behind closed doors. And people can keep ignoring it, but it will be the reason why they're on your doorstep. It is pre-crime, it's Minority Report, it's predictive programming. My father is the king of predictive programming. He's gotten facial recognition in this country based on terrorists and kidnappers. He's gotten civil sex offender registries that everyone thinks is just for pedophiles that are horribly ruining people that were not ever pedophiles in their life. Things of that nature. So I hope that we can start really looking at these things. It is hard, but I hope that we can really, as an ex-meditation teacher, and before I left all the new age and denounced it all and everything that I was trained in and that they supported, and like the high, energy, kundalini, all that kind of stuff, we need to ground this stuff. We, under the Lord, we can really correct this, and we have to get back to the roots. So that's my long-winded interruption.
No, I'm glad you interrupted me and clarified it. I already knew that. I know the reason why you do this. I don't
want to put out that it's because her kids were taken that she started coming out. I'm not that person.
No, I know you were already.
If I ever hid anything either.
I get it.
I didn't keep things under the rug at all. That's why I was the black sheep. That's why I have endured all of this my entire life. I've had to be the adult in this crazy town of John and Reve Walsh. I mean, it's a whole world in itself, especially on I called that our house on the island, the shining house and stuff. So growing up. But I think it's important to just articulate that. That's all I meant.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. It's just, I know there's a lot of new viewers that might not know your story, and it's important to know that just like you said, the man and woman that are supposedly protecting America from these monsters taking our kids are actually, I mean, how ironic, and I use that loosely, is it that they took their daughter's children? Like, they know the damage that's done. They had their own son supposedly taken from them, and they're doing the same thing to their daughter, but they're protecting America from that not happening. Like, that makes no sense.
And then sell the baby to a foster home in a not great area of town. Let's just put it that way, which is actually a hub. She's in the hub in one of the hubs in Florida for child trafficking is Fort Pierce, where people that do, we have a lot of patriots, and I love you guys, but if then that's where Trump is actually, his federal stuff was, and that is Fort Pierce. So it's nondescript, but it's actually very significant, and it's weird. But that is a hub, and that's where she is. So when we see them doing this, and then I think Gino in the future will do, maybe that'll be another special we do. We've got some specials guys that we're coming up with, because they're kind of more pointed topics or bigger topics. But I think that maybe, Gino, we should do a comparison of the allegations against me versus the realities of Adam.
That'd be good. Yeah, that'd be good.
In
Show the
my
parallels.
case files, for example, guys, to tease you a little bit. Oh, I'm getting good at this now. Naturally, no. To tease you guys a little bit. For instance, I was accused of having my paramour, quote unquote, like I said earlier, sleep in bed with my children, when we know that was actually, something that we do factually know in the records about Adam. So I just want to remind people of that. So that's what I'm talking about. When we look at the allegations against me, they are literally the allegations or the realities of what was going on with my parents and Adam at the time. So that leads
classic
to ask,
projection.
it is classic projection. This is narcissistic abuse, coercive control, whichever you feel more comfortable with, and more. And I did have, a level of Stockholm. These are my parents, and you're just so blessed to be rich. Be glad. So anyways, but we will get into that, and seeing whether, looking at Adam's case versus mine. Again, the allegations and the layout of my case is very scary. That's not the word, but very scary, would you say, Gino, of how correlating they are and how exact they are.
It's eerie. It's very eerie to me.
It's creepy.
But I want to say this. I think it's amazing that you broke the program. You deprogrammed. You didn't do exactly as you were supposed to, what they had raised you to do. And you've come out and you're bravely speaking truth right now. And this is what it is. It's truth. You've made no allegations. You're just stating facts, truth and facts. And when it has been a speculation, we've made it perfectly clear that we're speculating about things. And I think that's important for everybody to know. Yeah, it's an opinion. And
I mean,
I've seen you
trafficked and brought up through this.
Right, exactly. But I've known you for 2 years, and I've never known you to lie. You've never lied. You've told the same story from the beginning. Like, it's never varied. I can't say the same for other people.
We all have crap, We all have crap. Yeah. I've got 4 babies with 4 different daddies. Everyone can, judge that all they want. But actually, if a big thing about what another purpose of this, Gino, is I just want people to start realizing that, I watch Twitter or now X every day, and people are so foul, and just the level of depravity, or like just judgment and attacking each other and all this stuff. Like, we don't all have shit, right? Like I said, I think I said crap the last episode, but we all have crap. And wow, that's like the first time I've really sworn on TV. Excuse me. I'm sorry. But we all have crap, and we like our part of my work before all of this is like what I have to do. This is a duty, and I wish every American would start looking at this as such, because it's theirs as well. I had a job, I had a career that I left fashion, I left music for, so that I could study and help people heal their trauma, and more so that I could show better ways to live in the future, toxin-free living, biohacking, activating your body's own healing abilities, and everything that we're realizing through the COVID stuff. That's really what my purpose was before, and I want to get back to that. I am so ready for everyone to realize this and get it over with, so that we can move into spaces of support and healing for all of these families in our country right here in America that need to be reunited, and the babies that need to be returned. And we need to be working towards providing those spaces, like I was trying to do with the family learning farm, not knowing that it would be to receive, that sort of I thought it would be in more of a general communal sense or community sense. But I want to say we're all out here patriots, and I hope liberals. I'm crossing the line, you guys. This is not a political thing. I did Women Against Registry. I've met some amazing people in the liberal sector that are doing great things on Capitol Hill, and they're amazing, and they're actually sophisticated and organized and calm and grounded. I give credit where it's due. I'm not here like I'm not on a team. I'm on God's team, and that's all. And I'm here for children and families. So we need to stop focusing on the children because it's a violation of their rights. Actually, children have rights, and one of those main rights is the right to their biological families. And if our government wants to be intervening, you know, we got off Adam, but in our usual topics, but if our government wants to be intervening, then intervene and give support and aid and all of that to parents that are struggling across America, especially in today's atmosphere and climate, if you will. And then that affects the children's environments. That stops drug abuse. That stops huge percentages of drug abuse, domestic violence, homelessness, all of these things. We're literally throwing away parents and our neighbor to get the system is, and we're going along with it at this point. It's like throw out the baby with the bathwater, but keep the baby, and the bathwater consists of the family and the community and everything. So throw that out and just get the baby, give them a new family. They'll be good. They'll be just so happy. But the reason why we have these issues with trafficking is because they're all running away. So make it make sense at this point. So I can't get down with that anymore. We have the science, we have the statistics, and I'm meeting people across political divide and everything, so that we can really get this done. Because once we get it done, we need to, we have a lot to do. And my point in all that long-winded is that we've spent years spreading this awareness. I will say tonight that we're going to obviously continue this show to talk about Adam and other cold cases and things, but everything that I need to put out, I've already put out. I've endured 2.5 years of terrorism. I have grown and birthed a beautiful baby in the middle of all of that after losing 3 of mine. The country has completely ignored, anyone that matters. I mean, I'm sorry, excuse me, I digress. The country has supported me, the good people of this country, and everyone that's supposed to be oathed, even oathed and paid with our taxpayer money to protect us, has failed us. And if this is happening to us, it will happen to you, and it already is. I hate that, like, if it happens to me, it'll happen to you. But it is a reality because it's already happening to you. And it's happening in your communities. And with the pre-crime, and we already have people being held in shadow prisons in our country, and pre-crime units after they've served their time. And I don't think many people are aware of that. But we need to be looking at the fact that my father, behind closed doors, is not only selling children, his own grandchildren and newborn babies, essentially, but he is also setting precedent that any children can be taken based on any preconceived notion of potential abuse. The quote in the documents is something along the lines of potential future adverse events deemed. So essentially, they can take your children now because of my father and injuring his own family. He is brainwashing and abusing my children, and they've been ignored even by the state. And that's how this goes. The state has even failed my father. Furthermore, they failed John Walsh. DeSantis, I have no words. We came with grace and truth, and we've asked to meet. We've asked for the right thing to be done. We've come with grace and truth for justice and peace, and I will never stop saying that until the day I die. So, which, God willing, is a long, long time from here, because we have a lot of work to do. So that's where I want to, kind of promote people or push people to really be looking at. We've spread the awareness. I've put out all the facts that I can, and we keep doing it and keep doing it. We'll repeat and repeat until we get this done. But the sooner we get this done, we need to realize that we also have been wasting a lot of time when we needed to be setting up a response to this issue. A lot of people are gung-ho that this is real and understand that this is real, and that's freaking amazing. Okay, we're at a huge point right now, and people have been fighting for their children for decades. But we also need to realize that now we have a responsibility, and it's time to move towards creating the response to this. And that's also why I created Protect American Families. That's why we are starting chapters in every state. If you're interested in starting your own chapter, please reach out to me. But also please know that this is a We the People grassroots organization and effort. This is not, or it's actually an effort. So please, I say that because it's not my responsibility to inform you. Please keep up with the fact that we will be launching Gino's on the board, guys. We've got an amazing little board going on, and we will be launching a website at the end of this month that will have information for those that would like to start local chapters, as well as how they're going to do that and moving forward there, and a lot of other resources. But this is a very simple grassroots and will be a very effective move forward and push. But we need to be providing those spaces. We need to be emulating that in different areas so that there is a coverage of that for the amount of people that will be reunited and their children brought home. It's time.
It is. This is the moment. This is the time, and we cannot sit on our hands any longer. We have to do something. Otherwise, we're just not a country anymore. It'll fall so fast. That's the goal. The ultimate goal is to take God out, destroy the family, and then you lose your country. It happens. You can see it all through history, the same patterns. And it's sick because it always revolves around children and the abuse of the children. Mm-hmm. The devil doesn't quit.
And I'm not responsible for, the things that my father has done, and the ways that it's affected people. But I am willing to stand up and say it's time to do what's right. And I'm here to show up and do everything I can to do that. And that first and foremost is our children and families. Yeah.
You're the first family of crime fighting, and you're actually going to do the crime fighting, which I think is amazing. Like, I think it's going to be an amazing thing.
Twitter today, like, am I the actual manhunter? Like, my dad had this show, he's known as the manhunter. I'm like, what is this? What the heck? Mysterious ways.
Very
The Lord, some mysterious ways. So I'm going to show up for the Lord, and people might not understand my past or different things, but it is because I felt like that I have been following the Lord, and it's done me quite well in that respect. Not to say that I haven't made mistakes or bad decisions, but that was in the flesh. So I follow the Lord, we're doing good.
Yeah. Who hasn't made mistakes? That's not what life's about. We learn from our mistakes. We don't stay in our mistakes, and that's fine. We're moving forward. We're doing good things, and I know it's great. There's a nice audience out there watching tonight, especially here on Rumble. Thank you guys, and over on Foxhole.
Chat and stuff before
the chat's
doing pretty good. We're not like too crazy tonight.
No, it's 2 hours 15 minutes. If anybody's got any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in. In fact, while we're waiting to see if there's any comments or criticisms, if you have criticisms, we'll take those too.
Yeah,
this
totally.
is a free speech platform.
We're like an off the cuff show. This isn't like some scripted, produced,
no.
Whole presentation every night. So know when you're joining that we're just talking, and we want to know what you have to think, and might skip around, especially me with all the trauma and information. So it is what we're here. But I just want to say that about
everything you said, though, Megan, does tie back to Adam. I mean, I know you kind of went off and talked about these other things, but that's the origins of all this is Adam's case. So, like, it's not really off the cuff. And I mean, yes, we, in future shows, we will be dedicating the whole show to, like, when we get to the evidence, for sure. I mean, there's just tons of evidence to go over and present. So we'll stay on track with that stuff. But I don't, like, these tangents are important so that people understand why we're doing it. The real goal is to end the nonsense at some point, right?
And we need to have these conversations. I mean, yes, I think that, and that's why I preface it. I don't feel bad. I'm not prefacing that we're, not, perfectly produced or professionally produced or anything like that. I want people to understand that this is what needs to be going on. We need to have these conversations. We're talking off the cuff. We're not perfect. We're asking questions. We want to hear from you all. And that's what the beauty of this is, right? So if you don't appreciate it, I don't know. Just kidding. Just, that's what this is, a different way about it. If we, patriots and different people that do understand this and want to create a reaction to it or something that is correcting it or different, then don't recreate, like, remember to follow your own rules. I've been saying that since the Sound of Freedom and Tim Ballard. So,
Right.
patriots, don't forget to follow your own rules, because this is huge. Film. It was an amazing film. I'm gonna get crazy at the end because it's getting late. But Trump with his film.
Film.
Look up, it's a thread. It means a thread. So, I think that we need to be looking and just, not be afraid to question things and not be afraid to be wrong and not be afraid to have stuff in our past, because our hardships are our greatest life directors. And that's what I was alluding to earlier with the work that I was doing before, and what I've dedicated my heart to, and I can't wait to get back to, is really to be, with families, with children, and with my fellow neighbors who society wants to discard while they just get their kids and sell them off. That really, be able to come together as peers and be able to say, our hardships are our greatest life directors, and we're all unique, and all of our hardships are absolutely unique to each other, but there are very much commonalities, right, that God provides, so that not only can we find our groups and we can find our purpose, but through those hardships and the lessons, we become like experts, right? You can't know what you haven't experienced. So you become like an expert once you've experienced, for point's sake. But what I'm alluding to is the fact that our hardships can be our greatest life directors, and especially in terms of how we can help others and what you've experienced. And that kind of even eliminates competition, if you will. I'll go that far. So if we're all kind of following what God gave us and the hardships that he gave us, so that we can become sharpened and we can learn, and that's how we can really help people that we see, subsequently experiencing similar issues. And there's a lot of us across this country now, especially dealing with family courts and CPS. It's terrorizing a lot more than people realize, and they aren't realizing it, because parents that do speak out, or anyone that does speak out, is retaliated. They're gagged, they're threatened jail, they're falsely arrested, their kids are taken, and you're looking at one that can attest to all of that.
So Tanya Elder said, what was the reason they stopped printing missing children on milk cartons? How long did it go on for, and did any other countries do that?
No, other countries did not do that. There were methods. So first of all, trafficking was done through the Postmaster General, and that's why the post office is significant. Milk cartons. Before the milk cartons, it was catalogs, Sears and J.C. Penney's. Ironically, Sears was known. And J.C. Penney, then it went to milk cartons, then it went to missing flyers with Adam. My father was this genius that came up with the missing flyers from his marketing background is the account. And so they became this national thing. And then from there, we've had, all these, Amber Alert, which is another doozy that I get into in my other work, how that's really keeping the product and their trafficking system contained. And if your product gets away, send out an Amber Alert, or they use it as retaliation, as we know with the case of Yeshua and Othello, which I highly encourage people to go look at. I'll say it every time on Twitter. Their handle is Teachers Against Trafficking. Again, Teachers Against Trafficking. You can go look there and see the story of, currently he's 16, I believe, Yeshua, and his father Othello, who actually was an employee of the DOJ and won a bid through the, over the union and over National Center. And his son, he was framed through Amber Alert, and his son Yeshua was taken at 7 years old, given to the maternal grandmother who had been trafficking his own mother since she was 3 years old. So put into a trafficking family. This is at home trafficking. And he was sold out from age 7 to 15 when he actually reunited with his dad, and I was, in the mix of that, not a part of their reunification, but that's when I heard about their story. And Yeshua was still putting out cries for help from his cell phone and different things, and I did reach out to them, and they have been reunited, and now they are speaking out. They have also filed, like myself, a federal RICO against the people involved, and that is John Walsh and Obama and Kamala Harris and others associated through the Las Vegas metro area and police department and things like that. So there's a lot of ties. It is not that crazy. It's not that disconnected. It's actually very connected. These are small circles. These are police departments. These are CPS departments. These are judges and attorneys and so forth. So we have to look at that when we're also talking about, why we're doing this.
Tanya said, so the milk cartons weren't for good. No, what it was is to get you prepared for everything else that was going to come later. It's all a catalog. Just like Meghan said, it's the sick, nefarious thing about this is it to the general public. You look at that stuff, and I mean, look, I think we all fell for it at one point. You're like, oh my gosh, this kid's missing, and this is horrible, right? And it creates this fear porn all through the states that people are just disappearing all of a sudden, especially children.
Stranger
danger. And then all of a sudden, but what they're actually doing is prepping these kids for trafficking. And so it's like free advertising. It's disgusting.
It is free advertising, and then from that, then they can say, "Oh, this is all happening, so now we need you should fingerprint your child. You should submit your child's DNA." Now, Life Touch uploads every school photograph without the parent's knowledge or consent to a database. So what they are creating, it's opposition. It's predictive programming. It's opposition to give you it's Hegelian dialect, problem, reaction, solution. They're creating a problem, they're watching and knowing the reaction, and then they're giving you the solution that benefits them. And that was what I grew up with in my household and in my upbringing my entire life. And that's why I started speaking out. That's why I was leaving my parents and taking my children with me. And it's actually, my situation is actually a severe domestic violence situation, which my father has a track record for. And I made the mistake of letting them know what I was doing. And they, people, it's sad when the system doesn't acknowledge the fact that when, someone that's being abused, and especially with their children, actually leave the abuser, that is the most dangerous time for them. When they can be killed or different things can happen. And then we see what happened with John and Reve Walsh. And that's what they were doing before. They were coming to my house and banging on the doors. I mean, my children and I terrified inside the house. I have support and outside help that I finally went no contact. I mean, people have literally no idea. And that's where I really bring up my two big notions, Gino, that I'll be quiet. I'll shut up tonight after, but it's narrative versus truth, and it's public persona versus private life. And I really hope that people can ground those concepts and think about what that means. It'll change a lot and create a lot of peace, actually, I think. So.
Yeah, Tanya, she said, oh my God, once again, beyond beeped up. Yeah, it is. And they were just, the technology had to catch up, right? So, I mean, with the Amber Alert, that's the one that's really, really disgusting. I mean, because again, the surface level, these people aren't stupid. They design things.
Your children to be born now into a system where we have to do a crime to get our fingerprints, but they've suckered us into getting our children's and giving it to them. So now all of our children are being born in some sort of data and Obamacare, but that's how they're being medically kidnapped and everything. And that is data. So they have every aspect of data on your child and you, by the way, which then they're taking people like we saw with every other area of politics right now in the government. They are starting to, and they did it to me, they gather through the fusion centers and, all these different things. And Finders Cult is all involved in this. They're all the eyes. but they are looking at what your lifestyle is, and they are targeting people, that are living a lifestyle that they don't like. Homeschooling, not giving their kids the vaccine, going Christians, and my dad made sure, Gino, they made sure to hit every bit of that on the head, to cover in my case, to be able to use against all of you to take your children. So we can wait till it's on our doorstep, like the American dream loves to do, and the usual way of life, or we can actually go like, wow, we're not going to do this. Like, we can easily end this, and we're not ever letting this even close to what this could be or what they want, because it's happening. It's already happening.
You can go back to 9/11, the Patriot Act. They use these false flags, and yes, I'm using that statement, a false flag, to institute these new regulations, new rules, new technologies for surveillance, for control, for stealing your children.
Yeah.
It's the oldest trick in the book. Create the crisis and give the solution.
Yeah.
And what better? I mean, honestly,
money for it.
I will
get their money for it.
I will give them the props. I mean, it's a brilliantly evil plan, and they've done an amazing job of selling it. And it, just like you said, the catalogs, the marketing. Oh, the marketing's incredible.
The scripts. Oh, the parents must have done something. Oh, there's more to the story. I mean, we literally, public, I hope you all realize you all are repeating scripts if you do that. So, and we know the reality is not such. Over 80% now at this point of removals of children are unfounded in this country. This is, and the fact that we don't look at this statistically and logistically, and this was a business, which it's a business. This is a failing, like significantly almost 100% failing business that we continue to allow our hardworking taxpayer dollars to go to, while we can't even afford groceries. People are losing their homes and everything. And what does that do? That opens up your children. That makes them more vulnerable. So your money is being taken so that these administrators and these traffickers can profit, so that then they can go take your children eventually after taking your money, so that they can fulfill their quotas, which one of the recent senators or congressmen even stated flat out is a bounty on your children's heads. Okay? That's where we are at in America. And they have a bounty on your kid's head, and they will kill you or make you, unalive yourself or destroy your life to get that child and get that money. And they do not care. And that is the reality. I mean, look, I've been here for 2.5 years, and I have been called crazy up and down, and I will still, call me it all day. I do not care, because I know the truth. You do not faze me. When you know the truth and you have the truth and you know better solutions and you see it coming out everywhere, now you're just the,
I think you're kind of preaching to the choir. I think you're preaching to the choir here, though. I think most of the people in this audience understand all this stuff, but there are people that still don't get it. They just don't get it. They think
we need people to vocalize. I want to give support to that, because we need people to vocalize and be talking in their communities and having those hard talks with their friends and family.
I grew up in a country, Megan, that CPS were the good guys. That's the country I grew up in. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I thought, okay, yeah, these are abusive parents. They're on drugs, whatever. And take their kids and, give them to somebody that cares, right? Throw them in that system where they'll be cared for. And I don't know what the actual numbers are that happens. It is so minuscule that CPS is useless when it comes to doing the right thing. We know that. Just like Megan said, this is an institute that, let's face it, the CIA ties. Megan, that's such a great point that you brought up. The similarities and you just see the trademarks and the stamps that intelligence agency has done over the years. It's the same thing. And that makes probably the most sense I've ever heard. And it's sick.
With the FBI.
Collusion. Yeah. They're all in collusion.
Yeah, the Secret Service.
Some of the police departments, the sheriffs.
Now I realize why, I never liked politics, and my parents were always mad. I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't have been mad. They should have encouraged me never to look at politics. I don't know. But anyways, you know, I think we covered, you know, a good little bit. We wanted to give also you guys a little bit of break on just reviewing documents over and over again. It's a lot, and so we wanted to make this a little bit different tonight and throw some stuff out at you and just kind of talk about, you know, why we're doing this and what the bigger issues are. You know, and we hope that you found that valuable and you know, enjoyed yourselves. We'll be back next week, but you know, I think that this is important, and I thank you, Gino, every week that we do this, and you've always pushed me to do this, so we're here. But please, everyone, I don't know if we're ignoring anyone in comments. I want to be, you know, courteous of that. If we're not, that's good too. If everyone's just, you know,
We're good.
doesn't want to say anything, that's
Nope.
okay.
Just lots of lurkers. So it's Tanya said, I think we all did at one point, Gino. It's just devastating when you find out all this shit out. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It is devastating. You know what? But it's devastating, but we can't let it keep us down. You can't let it suppress. No, you have to stand up to this evil. Like what happens? What are we just going to let them? We don't let them win. That's not how it works.
No, they don't win. God already won. We know that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like when the light overtakes this darkness. It's like a wave. Like it's just a matter of time for the light to overtake the dark.
It is.
And we speed that up by realizing these things under God. We're a nation founded under God, right? Liberty and justice for all. That is not what's happening right now, and that makes it every American's duty to talk about these things. So it's just a matter of time. It's hard to talk about these things, but it should be really freeing because you know what? To find out that 7% of child sex crimes are actually from strangers and pedophiles. That's a big deal, y'all.
That is.
Like,
yeah,
that's huge.
That's minuscule compared to
it's amazing because we
happening
can do
in your family.
Something about that.
Absolutely.
To find out that 77% to 80% of removals are unfounded, and to find out that CPS is hindering case plans, or falsifying documents, or doing these things from the government, that's an amazing thing because that means we don't have these issues necessarily in our community, and that when they are real, we're not negating that they aren't real. When they are real, we can actually do something about it. And like Ted Gunderson says, what did the National Center quote that they found 94 children and like their existence at that point at 96 or 98 when he was making that speech. And love that man. Rest in peace. You're with us every day. But like, he was the one to stand out and say, like, give me that money and I watch what I do with it. And I literally have to say, I feel the same way. That's what I feel like. You know what? Let's take that $40 million of federal funding from the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. Let's get it over to fund Protect American Families. Let's correct what's happened. I mean, they can't do anything without their federal funding. So if we all get together and we do Protect American Families, and I'm totally speaking off the cuff right now, it's coming to me, and we, take away that 40, that we win that bid of 40 million that they get, imagine what the heck we'd be doing in every local chapter in every state.
True. Red Chief said, keep going. Great shows. Thank you, Red Chief. Appreciate that. God is very happy with you, Meghan and Gino. Thanks. Thank you, Red Chief. We appreciate that. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the nice words. But you know what? I do feel like we're called to do this. And I think everybody should be called to protect children. I just feel like that's everybody's business. That's not just one or two people.
It's not a calling. It's not a calling. I mean, yeah, it's a calling.
We are called to protect.
Fundamentally, it is our duty in this country. It is the first and foremost duty is to protect the vulnerable and those that cannot speak for themselves. And we are failing them miserably between children and families, and also veterans and the elderly.
Yeah. By the way, that's the government's duty too, is to protect its citizens. That's its number one job.
It's absolutely the government's duty. But it's our duty. I'm saying that our duty is that when the government is not doing
that's right.
that we handle that. Yes, absolutely. That's why we're here, is because the government isn't doing that.
That's
but
right.
It is our duty where people want to turn a blind eye, or they want to say, I need my job, or I have a family and everything. But that's actually what keeps it going, because then people can be ostracized or they can be then that's when things can happen. When we are out front with the truth, I always say, right, in my merch store, I have the t-shirt. I got to bring that back, by the way. But in my merch store, I've got the t-shirt that, truth and grace for justice and peace. That's really what we need to do. And it's really that nice. We don't have to be so vulgar. We need to ground it, find grace, know it's our duty. We're not fighting even. You know me, Gino. We're taking a
Mm-hmm.
stand. We're not fighting anything. I'm not fighting
Nope.
anybody. I'm taking a stand. I've had to fight terrorists for 2 years to protect my babies and my unborn child.
Never
where they're running
violent, though. You've
down
never
in the
been violent.
neighborhood. I'm sorry?
No. The violence came from their side, never from you.
Yeah, no. And it's happening all over this country. Women and children and their children are literally being hunted in this country, and people don't want to realize that. So,
Tanya, I agree to a point. She said it would change everything. Talking about if you had money, money definitely helps. We're not going to lie. That would maybe speed things up. But when you have God on your side, we're just like Megan said, we're going to win no matter what. We don't need their fiat currency to do what we're going to do.
Need money. Everyone
we need
has
to stand
skills.
up. Yeah, we need to stand up.
Everyone has skills. Everyone has networks of people that are good or bad. And I don't mean to like adamantly, go against someone's comment, but like you're right. But we don't need money for this. That's the thing that they want us to think. It's what they need. That's projection. That's abuse to you. You should be mad about that. Your government's abusing you. It is not that we need money. It's not that it takes a village. It's that it takes a community supporting and knowing the sacred and vitality and need for the nuclear family, for maintaining kids in their homes, in their biological homes, because that's a whole other show. And that's what I talk about every day. Everyone can go to my Twitter, everyone can go to other podcasts. That's, we're getting into other stuff tonight, but I thank everyone. But it's not money. It's about the fact that we all have hardships. How can we offer stuff and empathy and understanding and support to others that may be going through the same similar hardships? It's how do we take our skills and our talents and then we offer them to good causes or within our community? It's, there are many, many ways that circumvent this greed or this. No, it's another script, the need of money. That is an establishment script, honestly. And that's why they win, because we know that. They take that away from us, and we've been programmed that that's what we need.
Look, we have the numbers, we have the moral high ground, we have God. There's no way they win. So I don't care about any of that stuff. It's just us using that thing we have with teeth in it and opening it up and letting things come out against the evil. And that's what we have to do. More people have to be bold and stand up and say, no, you're wrong. Like all the stuff they're trying to do with transgenderism and all their narratives. It's
going to be so cool. Gino,
it's to silence us. Me too.
I have faith in the Lord, and you know what? It's going to be so cool when people finally start all coming together. And it's starting, but we need it. You guys all need to get out in your community. This is all about local. I mean, I know that a lot of people are sitting around waiting for figures to solve things or thinking that it's bigger than them even and different things. But this is literally so exciting because this is actually the biggest issue, and it's the one issue. I mean, there's many, but this is the huge, we can actually do something about, is my point. And the distraction is that there's this international trafficking and the border and all this kind of stuff. I don't pay attention to the border because I know what the border is. And I pay attention to the domestic child trafficking issue here in America because, as I've said many times, I know that the border is only happening because they know that we have a well-oiled machine of child trafficking here in America. So that is just
it's a feeder.
That's a tentacle. Like I'm about root. If we end CPS, we address these family courts, which is addressing the racket that is, the GALs, the judges, the attorneys, the social workers, goes on and on, that make up this system. that is the racket. They all work together. They work in conjunction. They go to lunch when they've just been opposing each other, to take your child or to keep your child. They make backdoor deals. So it looks like they're defending you in court, but then they're not really, because they know what the prosecution has to get on the record to take your child. You go do a case plan for a year and a half, begging for your child back while you're destroyed and your life is taken. You can't work because of the requirements. You can't do anything. And then by the end, from the beginning, they plan to take your child anyways. And that's you being trafficked, by the way. These people, it's not just the children being trafficked in the system, but the parents are being trafficked. Every time money is collected on a service, that is trafficking. I don't think that when we're offering community services and all this kind of stuff, that people should be getting incentives and be getting paid. To be honest, I'll pay all day long when you show me thriving biological families that you help through hardship, you support them to get a car, you help them get through substance abuse. That leads into adoption, all these people adopting because they can't get a freaking kid of their own. Did you help that family as much as you could and support that family to keep that child before you bought it, before you took it through adoption? Because that's really, if you cared about children, that's what you'd be doing. That not having a child not having a family breaks a child. And that's what a lot of, if people look up the hashtag adoptee on TikTok and different things, our besties and the love of our lives, Rescue the Fosters, every on Thursday nights on Insight. But, Sylvia Beachy, KK, adoptee is a big thing. And we're also looking at masses amount of people coming out and realizing, especially once this is outed, that they were adopted and that they were lied to in certain ways. We have a lot of people coming out talking about, I was adopted out from my parents, but I was horribly abused my entire life. So this is not the solution. It's an inverted thing. And that's why we look at Adam, because the National Center has not only covered missing and exploited, they now have the Adam Walsh, forms and requirements for every interstate, out of state, and international adoption. What does that have to do with anything? They have their tentacles in other areas of child issues that really create a monopoly and an authority. And when we see the way that they're revered in this country, they're not questioned. They work with every agency of government. They are a government agency fronting as a nonprofit. And we need to be looking at these two big entities of CPS and the National Center in our country when it comes to the protection of our children and families and maintaining and showing thriving families. There's better ways.
There
I'll
is.
say it. Go ahead.
Red Chief said, when will you be diving deep into John's connections with the sheriff and in that department? Yeah, we'll get there.
In Hollywood or here in Indian River? Which one?
I think both. Yeah, we'll get into both for sure. He doesn't want to miss. Doesn't want to miss that episode. But yeah,
no, thanks for the direction. We'll go that way. We've been asking people what they want to hear about because it's huge, you guys. I mean, there's we could talk all night long. You see, we're doing an hour. Never. So there's
never
tons,
happens.
and I don't. I like this. I love that we can talk and we can have people really joining in, and I really want to shift. We have this perception of what media is. We have this perception of what the credible sources are and everything, and the style that looks at. I've grown up in it my entire life. It's media. It's called media. It's called news. It's production. It's for ratings. They're all competing for your viewing. So my point here is that, I really appreciate this when we can sit and talk like this and really be kind of moving into a new way for people to receive information, people feel like they can interact and actually interact and have input. And I love that. So that's direction. That's what we've been asking y'all for. Didn't we say it last week? What do you want to know? So thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you, Tanya.
We will get into.
Said Megan's videos are the only ones I can watch live. Really appreciate you guys coming on this time. Please don't change it. I think Tanya's in, if I remember correctly, is it Australia, Tanya? I think you're somewhere there. Buffering.
That's awesome. We have a huge support from Australia and the UK, which is ironic because these are the two other countries that have the biggest issues with exactly what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
And that also
Right.
is from influence from the International Center for Missing Exploited Children. So
Yeah.
I love that we got other people coming forward from around the world.
For sure. Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for your comments. Thank you on Rumble, Insight, lots of lurkers. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Yeah, you're always welcome to leave comments after the video in the comment section here on Rumble. And I do get notifications, so if you put something in there, I will see it. And then if you have show ideas or you got questions, you can place them there, and we will definitely get to it. So we appreciate you. Megan, awesome. You gave so much information tonight. I'm going to have to listen to this again. Oh, by the way, speaking of listening to it again, we are now on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. So if you just like the audio version of it and you're driving around and you want to hear it again or haven't heard it yet, you can go there and listen to that. I'm trying to upload them quickly. I'm not going to get all of the past shows that I've done with, not only with Megan, but my other, Rescue the Fosters, my Insight show, The Blender. Some of those are up there. I've kind of been picking and choosing which ones I've uploaded. But from now on, I think all of the shows will be uploaded. Yeah, I know. Four here.
I stick up for us, guys.
You do. But we have 60. I think we have 65 episodes of Rescue the Fosters now. The Blender's got like 65 or 70 shows up there. So I can't upload them all to the podcast format. So if you guys want to join it, those from now on, I think will all be on those platforms. But past shows, you'll have to go to Rumble or Foxhole to watch those if you so choose to. But thank you again. We appreciate you. Megan, where can people find you? And if they want to donate, I know we got to change that PayPal. That's still wrong.
On the bottom. Yeah, the PayPal's wrong. It's okay. So yeah, no, I want to thank everyone, and I want to say, yes, please go find us, and also share that out, please, if whatever choice platform you use, and just be talking about it. Just find a way in your, your circle of friends, your community, even if people are adverse to it, just say, well, yeah, I mean, I thought that too. And, were you aware of this or that? I mean, this is where we need to be moving, is educating yourself on the statistics, educating yourself on the base realities of it, and not keeping it so up in the clouds and like this, oh my God, is this real? What do we do with this? Is this a thing? All this stuff. No, it's real. It's very simple and straightforward. These people are not that creative. So let's start coming together and learning what's going on, and then we can talk about it in our communities and spread the word. People can find me, of course, on Twitter. I'm trying to just keep it the main place. I don't want to get all watered down everywhere and do all this on all the platforms as far as finding me and my information. That is at Twitter. So that is Meghan Walsh _ Meghan with an H. They're loving to put out these random Meghan Markle articles lately. Like her shoe was off the other day whenever we have a big release, spelled the same way. And it's very interesting to watch how X and media cover up real truth stories with celebrity stories. So I will say that Meghan has been trending, my spelling, Meghan, because of myself and Meghan Markle, for the past days or so. But I've had over 2 million views. I think we're almost at 3 million in the last 7 days on Twitter. So please, everyone, go over there, and I'm very grateful for that. You can see it below, Meghan Walsh _ PayPal is actually Family, Farm, and Faith. It was the farm I was building before. So it's Family, Farm, and spelled out AND Faith @gmail.com. And then the Cash App is mwalshconsulting with the signature $ before. So if you feel so inclined, this is how I survive. This is how I keep working. And then at the end of this month, we're very excited. Actually, the Secretary of State just approved a couple days ago Protect American Families. We are doing all the IRS and all the crazy paperwork for the system. I hate to say it right now, but we are declared a nonprofit. And so we will be switching all of that over to eventually, supporting that. But for right now, we're supporting my efforts and the work that I do, because unfortunately, that is what they attack, is your livelihood and your resources. So any prayers are invaluable. We thank you endlessly for those, and I know so many people are. My supporters and followers are such a loyal, amazing, and genuine group of people and population, as well as survivors and victims and whatever we're calling it these days, with their own stories coming forward and own testimonies. So it really is a cool space to be involved in. I feel I actually am proud of that. And then again, moving forward, Protect American Families, we need you guys, and we want you to reach out and also let us know what area you feel like resonates with you. And if you'd like to start a local chapter, if you feel, hey, I'm in this career or that career that could really help people out, or I do this or that for a living, everything is going to help. We're going to need everything, and I'm ready. I'm done with this. I will keep, we're doing this show. I'm not saying I'm not telling the show, but I'm done with, this being this up in the air issue. This is now established. We know what this is. It's a matter of time, and we need to have the resources and the response to it. So I thank everyone tonight for joining. And Gino, thank you always for being such an amazing and gracious, not only co-host, but brother in Christ, and one of my best friends. So we're really pushing forward, and we really appreciate everyone for being here for this grassroots effort. We need you all. So please start coming forward. Please start reaching out to us, and I just thank you for joining, genuinely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Megan, and thanks for the kind words. I appreciate that. I did forget to mention that if you are on those podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, Pandora, or Apple Podcasts, it's Insight, INSITE. You can just put that in the search bar and it'll pop up. And then all the shows are listed right there. I double checked them. I don't know. I have a program that uploads to all the platforms, so hopefully it's uploading correctly. I think I checked earlier, and it looked like there was one. Maybe on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts, it takes a little longer than the other platforms. But other than that, I think everything should work.
If there's a problem, let us know.
Let me know.
Right? We're all in this together. So let us know if there's an issue. We're all doing this. So Gino, you're amazing. Thank you so much, everyone.
Same to you. Same to you.
Tonight, and we'll see you next week. We'll have some. Let us know in the comments, guys, what you want to know about. We would great on the sheriff stuff. We'll definitely cover that, because
there's a lot to talk about that.
Parallel. I think, Gino, before we go, we're starting to see that this might be a very parallel history repeats itself scenario. Not exact, obviously the details and the names change and the dates change, but it's getting weird. So
I think like a timeline, like graph type thing, like parallel lines showing your story and Adam's would be amazing to see, like visually, so people see that it's symbiotic. It's really really strange, but we know it's intentional. There's an intentionality to these people because they're ritualistic. That's the thing. And when you understand the demonic side of it, when you understand the ritualistic purposes and why they do things the way they do, patterns are symbols. I mean, we all know this. So it's not surprising.
It's not. And I'm going to say something, because I spent 20 plus years as a religious scholar. I lived in India. I was a high practicing Kundalini, practitioner and all that. Just repeat myself, but I was in it for over 20 years. I ended up getting certified to train towards the last bit, and I actually had my son on the night that I was supposed to go through the initiation. So God really does save you from things. But I will say that, we've gone through all this stuff, and I really just want us to get down to the good heartedness of it, because there is so much magic and all the manipulation and all the crap that they put out for us to be so distracted. So for us to be able to just simplify and realize that it is doable, and it's because we are all talking here, and we're, doing what's right and what's needed.
Amen. All right. On that note, God bless you. Have a blessed evening. If you care to watch The Blender tomorrow night, me and Michael will be on 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the good old US of A. And that's always a fun
They
show.
got good dad jokes, y'all. They got good
no dad jokes tomorrow. We do it because if we did them every week, Megan, they're horrible enough as it is, and they're so cheesy. If you did it every week, it would just like ruin it. We're even worse than it already is. So no dad jokes tomorrow, but the following week they return.
Oh, man.
And you know what's funny now? This is how stupid it's gotten. Now people are sending me dad jokes. Like I'm just like, it was supposed to be this dumb thing, and then all of a sudden now everybody's like, oh yeah, here's some. I got a whole bunch.
People love your dad jokes. So
Okay, well,
it might have to start every week, but
all right, maybe it will.
People are sending them, but anyways,
Maybe
go
it
watch
will.
The Blender.
Yep.
Go watch Rescue the Fosters. Thank you everyone that hung in with us and joined tonight. And please don't miss next week. Please talk about this. Please share it. And God bless you all, because we got
Have a great
stuff
night.
to do.
Take care.